open the Sewer Commission meeting this evening, March 31st. I apologize for not having had an open meeting here on television for so long. Had to look at all those reruns for 4 months, and hopefully we'll be back again the end of this month. First thing I usually forget to do that I will do tonight is make sure that everyone's aware that in accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over Lunenburg Public Access. We'll start the meeting with a few announcements. We have openings on the Sewer Commission. Unfortunately, we have 2 members who've decided not to rerun. Dave and Butch will be missed, especially if we can't find anybody to come step in and help carry the load of the commission here. So there are 2 openings, and I would encourage anyone to please reach out to us. I don't believe any papers have been taken out for the election, so I don't believe there'll be any names on the ballot. But we certainly will be looking for people and could be appointed after the elections by the Board of Selectmen. Okay. Grease trap. My grease trap speech tonight is going to be very short. We have a lot of discussion on grease traps, and but I do suggest you stay tuned because we've been saying that we really want to get people compliant and not just fined, but the time has come that we are going to have to implement some fines, so that will be discussed tonight. So please stay tuned for that discussion. But it's not too late to get the reports in, so please do. Just a brief update on the Pratt Lakeview Betterment Project. We will be scheduling, there will be discussion this evening too, so please stick around for that, on the status of that. But we will be scheduling a status and information meeting for anyone who's interested, particularly in those areas, as soon as the bids are in, which is mid this month. So at our next meeting after that, we'll probably be talking about when to schedule a information session, and we will be reaching out to all the residents to let them know so that they can come in, meet with the engineers. We would have selected a contractor by then, and they can get all their questions answered hopefully at that time. And again, I would hope that would be sometime probably in May. And then finally, we have another project that we are going to be going to town meeting with. We'll talk that a little more on Pleasant View project. We have received a sufficient number of supportive votes from the residents of Pleasant View, and we'll be bringing a warrant article to town meeting to proceed with putting sewer on that street, which is very much in need. Okay. So having no public present, we can skip the public comment. And
I actually have a public comment.
I was going to ask for board, but
oh, sorry.
Thank you. No, that's good. I might have rolled right by it. Thank you, Troy.
All right. I'm looking forward to tomorrow night. First Parish, 20 Lexington Road in Concord. One of Lunenburg's own, David Noyce, is doing a book signing there at 7 o'clock. He's a nationally recognized author, lives in town, and will be in Concord for a book signing.
Excellent.
Oh, good.
Thank you, Troy, for sharing that. Any other public comment from the board?
The only thing,
brought one in, we could have signed it.
the only thing on, I know it's not on our agenda, you may want to put it on the next one, is for the pool policy. I think we should start announcing our pool policies, since that was the hot topic when Butch and I first came on this commission, was the pool policy.
So we put that to bed a long time ago.
We did.
What's there to talk about now?
I think it's relevant for announcements. Yeah, I mean, it fits right now, Dave.
Fill out the forms. And also, I just want to make it aware that once you fill out the form for the pool policy, that does not mean you don't have to pay the water bill. You're still going to have to pay your water bill, but you don't have to pay for the sewage if you're connected. So get those forms in, because that's right around the corner.
Okay. Again, just for anyone who may be new to town or have a new pool, before you fill your pool or even top it off, unless you want to pay sewer fees for the water you put in your pool, you need to come in, get the form, fill it out, so that we can track the amount of water and, not have it hit your sewer bill. As Dave says, it's going to hit your water bill, but no need to pay sewer fees on water you put in the pool.
You might want to remind those with sprinkler systems to do the same.
Works. That works. It is going to be soon to turn on your sprinklers. And again, if you have an irrigation meter, that's great. That would be deducted from your water usage. But if you don't have a separate irrigation meter, if you plan on doing much watering, and particularly don't want to pay sewer fees for the watering of your lawn, we strongly encourage you to get a irrigation meter installed so that water can be metered separately, and again, you won't have to pay sewerage fees for water you use on your lawns or for irrigation.
No sump pumps into the sewer.
Yeah. That one's coming. We got a good discussion on that one.
Unless you have a meter, right?
Nope. Good try, Mike. Okay, grease trap. First order of business tonight is the grease trap regulation discussion and fee implementation. And Troy is with us tonight, so we move that to tonight's discussion. And Troy has taken the lead on this and has done a lot of great work and given us a lot of information to review and hopefully release tonight and or provide some input to how we proceed. So, Troy, would you like to take it over from here, please?
Well, I guess the first question I would have is that if there was any feedback on the notice of noncompliance that was created or generated. There was a couple of things that were highlighted on that notice that would need to be completed or affirmed, an address that we need to remit payment hearing to. There was a couple of things that were highlighted in a second notice that weren't on the first notice, just to update. I like to highlight when I make a change so that you'll know what those are. But they were very minor, and it was within the 30 days or fat oils and grease as opposed to fog.
Mm-hmm.
The other question was, it's a notice of noncompliance for a noncompliance fee, and I'm not sure if Barb had an opportunity to talk with town council about whether that the fee would fall under the fines within the regulations or whether that a fee is separate from fines. Okay. I also communicated with Barb back and forth a couple of things. There were some of the forms that we have in place. There was a concern about whether the word should be replaced with must or shall be submitted to the sewer commission. And some of the maintenance logs have room for more than 2 years worth of information. And when we're asking for something for once a month, that was a little bit confusing to me as well. I'm not sure really where you want me to go with this discussion, but
maybe if we could, start with the, the letter that you talked about.
Okay.
And just deal with that. And then, because my input since I'm talking here is, I think it's very well done. I didn't have any real input to that particular form.
I guess I would seek input from anyone else on the commission if they had some comments about the notice of noncompliance that was drafted, that was forwarded to everyone, if they saw any issues or any feedback.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Dave.
Troy, excellent job. The only thing I got a question on is the second paragraph from the bottom, when the commission finds that the user shall violate or continue to violate the provisions of these regulations, the commission may fine each such user the amount of $5,000. Where did you get the $5,000?
Regulation Article 6-1C. It's part of the Sewer Commission regulations.
I thought that
Everything
was
in the
for-
letter here is from the regulation.
I thought that was for illegal tie-ins, though.
No.
I think it's whenever condition of violation continues to occur.
Did you attach Article 6-1-C?
When, and everything in the letter is cited with the regulation. So anything that's stated in the letter has the regulation quoted.
Our regulation, Lunenburg?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, when you see those, in that second paragraph, at the end of that paragraph, you see regulation Article 6,
Yep.
6-1C, that is our sewer
No,
commission
it's just,
regulation.
I didn't see it here.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but yeah, everything within that letter is directly from our regulation.
No, this is excellent.
They-
Now, when they get this notice of noncompliance, do they get this form, or is that a separate form?
That's a separate form.
Okay. Like I say,
I'm
Mr.
not sure
Chairman,
how Barb would like to do that, but.
What was the second one?
The
Oh, yeah.
back page.
That was just.
Yeah, I'd like to get to that after we
Yeah, I
decide
didn't know
what
if
we
it was
want to do
part of
here.
this.
Okay.
Yep.
On the non-compliance.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the non-compliance notice, the only thing, I saw that it references the exterior interceptor, you know, the grease trap, and if we were going to have the same type of notice for if people aren't complying by sending in the interior reporting.
Oh,
And that's in the notice of noncompliance, Barb?
It is?
Wh-
I mostly saw that it was the exterior.
Which paragraph is that?
oh, yeah, right at the beginning where it says action necessary for compliance. You're right, I didn't miss that. It seems to be addressing only grease interceptors, not grease traps as well.
You mean in the paragraph, the sort of blocked out paragraph, the first block?
Action necessary for compliance?
The action necessary for compliance after the
Okay.
first block.
It's those same
Or-
clauses.
The appendix CJ, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I guess maybe the question is, and maybe there are two of these, Troy.
Okay.
One is for interceptors, one is for grease traps. Because the requirements are, are different.
Unless you're counting that as all one, grease traps and grease interceptors the same.
Yeah, but you can't because the requirements.
I know, but I know Troy's still learning, I know you're learning the grease trap, so I mean, I would have done probably the same thing, all grease. It should have been, you're right, it should have been another paragraph, but I understand the gist of what he's trying to do.
Yeah, the other possible way to approach it, Troy, rather than having two, is do we need to go into that action necessary for compliance paragraph? Because that's really the only place we identify interceptors. So I think it's either we add
And/or,
the requirements for grease traps, which would make it a little bit more wordy and maybe confusing, or we really don't, we don't identify what those, requirements are, because there's a whole bunch of requirements, right, that we're not talking about any also. So I guess the question is, do we need the action necessary for compliance?
Well, I would say anytime you're sending a notice and a fee, that you want to provide information on how you correct it. So I'm not arguing your point about, the action necessary is maybe different, but I think it would be sort of customer service friendly to say, what do you need to do?
Yeah.
What is it that you need to do in order to become compliant?
Yeah.
That would be my only feedback on that.
Yeah, it makes sense. So then I think
And
either
give the direction.
we need to add the grease trap or have a separate document, one for grease trap, one for interceptors. And
Okay.
can you put and/or, grease trap and/or interceptor?
but the requirements are different. They don't have to be cleaned out, performed by a licensed hauler. Right. A grease trap doesn't have to be cleaned out by a licensed hauler.
No, but it's still got to be cleaned out.
Yeah, but I'm saying, so it goes
Yeah.
beyond and/or, right? Because these requirements are specific to interceptors.
And I guess we'll come back to that at some point where the grease traps that have the, I don't know if there are any in town that have already been approved for the 25% rule, but we'll get to that, is that, or do we get to that now?
I think is now is fine. There was no intention to get there. To the best of my knowledge, I've never had anyone come before us and request applying the 25% rule to a grease trap, which is, for anyone out there, which is silly because that really simplifies the whole process. So I would encourage anyone to, to look into doing that. But
Well, I would say that that was one of the things that was questionable in my mind whenever I was reading the regulation as to whether, just assuming that there were people who fell within that, the regulation basically states that if you fall within the 25% rule, you do a measure, you take a picture, and you have your all of that documentation available for inspection. And that's the way I understand the regulation. And I didn't know if anyone in town was already under that. But if they are, then there is a question about the reporting, whether that's required once a month or whether it's available for inspection and who would do that inspection. And I know that there was some information forwarded to Barb, a recommendation about whether I got a lot of information from outside vendor, or I guess vendors you could call them, about billing or managing or monitoring this, and that my recommendation was that at some point we might look to either Neshoba or to one of our peer reviews to manage that for us, to actually have them be the entity that would do the inspections for that. And I don't know how the rest of the commission feels about that.
One of the things we tried to do when we first implemented this was, we know that we're responsible for the exterior grease traps. That's a given. The interior grease traps, in every town that I work in, doing what I do, is the responsibility of the Board of Health when they do Board of Health inspections. Now, I talked to our local Board of Health, and at the time, they said they don't have the manpower or the people to do it. But when you, and again, I don't know who inspects these kitchens. I mean, I would be kind of concerned if no one's looking at the back rooms of some of these restaurants. But I know they have to do inspections by law. When they're in there, they should be inspecting the grease traps. And if they put their blind eye to it, shame on them, because if grease is coming out of the floor, that's a safety hazard, not only as far as a health hazard. So that's my comment. It should be the Board of Health for the interior, us for the outside.
I guess since we haven't really had buy-in on that from our Board of Health, I had sent to Barb a recommendation that would seem either the Neshoba or a outside vendor like Weston Sampson, whomever,
Party, right.
might be the entity that could do that for us. And I don't know if that's something they could do for us under a separate contract, or if that's something that we could request as a commission to do separately. And is that something we have any feedback on, Barb? Or
I only know that the engineering part would be up to this commission, but I did go to the Neshoba, our agent, and they don't have the manpower to do it.
No,
They're interested in taking
so
it on.
even if we contracted with them, they wouldn't be able to do it for us, or?
I was just feeling them out to see, I wanted to know how they do it for other towns, and I got the impression that they don't do it for any other town. So I didn't pursue that further until the commission would have to say we cannot pay.
Mr. Chair, if you could.
Yes, Dave.
Good ideas, but before we send it out to a Weston Sampson or something, if they're in a violation, I would recommend talk to our local plumbing inspector, pay him to go over and inspect it. They're certified, money stays in town, and we're only talking, 12, 14 grease traps interior, I think. But, I mean, that would be my recommendation. See if the plumbing inspector can do it for a fee, and then we charge that fee along to the people. If they're not going to pay, they'll have to pay to get the fee to get inspected.
Well, I certainly don't have any objection to that. I mean, it's certainly up to the commission what their preference is, but I think what we were trying to evaluate was what makes sense and how, and when you go out to outside billing, it opens up a whole other, they really don't have the ability to do this. So maybe, Dave's suggestion is the most viable for this.
The question I got, Troy, is being on the Board of Health, did they ever do inspections for restaurants or just by a phone call?
I think they have
They
to.
do restaurant inspections, but I'm not sure about Grease Trap, but yeah, they do restaurant.
When we say they, is that?
The Board of Health, he asked if Board of Health.
Yeah, but is it the Neshoba?
It is Neshoba
Agent, right?
Regional, yes.
Yeah, so it's not-
They're the only agent for,
Right,
So they're the actual ones who go out and do the inspections at the restaurant?
Yes.
right. Right, and that's why it made sense for Barb to contact them. So I think from not even just enforcement, but routine checking, I think we need to, I do think we need to pursue all of these things. I think it's worth another discussion with the Board of Health, just to, for once and for all, make that clean and put it to bed, and why, how that could happen or why it can't happen. I think the suggestions that were made are all good ones to pursue. I'd also like to add to that list to talk to our system operator, Small Water, about is there a role in this they could play. They're in town, maybe not every day, but several times a week, even from just a routine spot check, because I personally think that once we get people going here, we still need some spot checks so people know that they're always a bit in jeopardy, quite frankly, of somebody coming in and seeing is it posted, has it been done? So I think we need to take some more concrete steps, and I'd like to suggest that we take one more crack at the Board of Health as a start, and if we can't get anywhere, then we go to suppliers, basically,
Mr.
a
Chair,
different
you have
form.
to have somebody that's going to inspect that knows what they're doing. Just to have somebody go in and look at a grease trap, and if they don't know what they're doing, what are you inspecting, and how are you going to enforce
Yeah,
anything?
but of course, I don't think any of these people that we talked about aren't capable of inspecting a grease trap. I mean, we expect the owners to do it, so.
But, Mr. Chair, overall, this is a very, very good start. So
Yeah.
this is what we've been missing.
So I'd like to put that, no, I don't want to let it just drop there. I'd like to put an action that we set up a joint meeting, and maybe our liaison, who I think is liaison to the Board of Health too, could help us make that happen. And have that meeting, and, whenever we can arrange it. I'm not sure how often they meet, but certainly no later than June.
I guess if the feedback was that that Neshoba Regional doesn't have the manpower, it really isn't going to change the response probably from the board, whether they approve or disapprove, whatever. So maybe we can start moving in the direction of a Wright Pierce, Weston Sampson outside.
Mr. Chair, the only problem I have with that is
That gets expensive.
that would be expensive. Now, just
Or as you suggested, Dave, the
Well,
local.
in the town of Shrewsbury, I do a lot of work out there, and they hired our company
Yeah.
because they don't come with tools. You need a tool to open up a grease trap. You need a ratchet and stuff. So we would assist the Board of Health in doing that for them, doing the inspection while they're doing their restaurant inspection. So again, I used to have our plumbers go out when Nancy called from the Board of Health and assist them. They would check it, the 25% rule. And Mr. Chair is right. It's not difficult if you just do the 25% rule. Now, maybe some of the people don't know what that is. But, and again, maybe we should send out all the grease trap personnel another update of what exactly it is. But it's not that hard. And if they just follow it, it'll make it a lot easier and a lot less money for everybody, because they're going to be paying fines that they don't have to. And that's sad, because they could do the job right and save that money, so.
I'd
Yes,
just like
Mike.
to say, I don't buy the manpower thing. They're in there doing an inspection of a kitchen. And-
Sure.
And they're there, so you're
Yeah.
talking, to inspect the grease trap, you're probably talking 10 minutes
Right.
tops to inspect it. I just don't buy that, there's no manpower, because you're there in the first place.
Yeah.
It's either you don't want the task,
Right.
or, the manpower thing just doesn't
Right.
fly with me.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's why it's worth having another discussion, so we
If they have a service for
communicate.
that, they'll automatically
There
get,
may be other services. There
get
there may be,
reports on it.
we may not need, we may not need inspection, because, really what we need at the first level is, are the forms posted and filled out correctly? Right? If they're filled out that they were just cleaned, I don't know that people have to open the trap and confirm it. I would hope we could trust that they fill out the paperwork correctly. So I agree with you, Mike. I mean, it shouldn't be much extra burden while they're in there doing whatever they do to say, where's your maintenance log? Yep, it's up to date. So,
I think that also speaks to the point that I had sent something to Barb about that is, based on the information that's being sent to her, I think that there is a need for some education on this by local restaurant. I don't think they know what they're supposed to send, when, and how. That was my general sense from the information that's being provided to her on a fairly irregular basis.
right.
Mr. Chair, maybe what we
Yes.
should do is have a workshop and invite the restaurant owners in to explain what they're supposed to have. So we get them all on the same page.
I would be all
Now,
for that if
if
we
they
could
don't
get
come to that-
attendance. Yeah.
And they end up getting fined, well, the onus is on them, not us. We did our part.
I think I think that's a blanket offer to anyone, any restaurant owner. As a matter of fact, I would go as far to make the offer, and I know these hardworking guys at the table with me, that we would come to your place to explain it to you, if you would give us the time and reach out to us. Because everyone's right here. If you really understand what we're asking for, it isn't that much. And I think with the next step here, when we go to the forms, when we clean the forms up a little bit more and we have uniform forms and better communicate what we want, it hopefully even easier. And then the last way to make it really easy is to Dave's point, if the 25% rule, which basically says, which is made specifically for, I think, a lot of the cases out there, which is you don't have such big volumes of grease that you have to clean it every week or every month or whatever the requirements are. You only have to clean it when it reaches the 25% level per the manufacturer's spec on the equipment. So that could be, once every 3 months, if that's what you find your operation requires, and therefore you have to report essentially once every 3 months.
I would just add to that there are some requirements for records and photographs to be taken with that.
Yes, but
Yeah.
that
Right.
don't have to
Yeah.
be
Yeah,
sent
just-
in, and have
yeah.
to be available, yes. Yeah, there still has to be posting, we still have to be able to go in and see that it was
Right.
inspected, because you do still have to inspect it to confirm hasn't reached 25%. So you're right, it's not a free pass, but it's a lot better than today.
Mr. Chair, just a quick story for these restaurant owners. When we're doing Shrewsbury inspections, one of the employees was dumping grease down the drain. DEP came in and fined him $25,000. So if DEP comes into any restaurant and finds out they're violating these regulations, not only do you have to deal with the sewer commission, but you're going to have to deal with DEP. And you don't want to do that. I've seen that you don't want to do that. So again, it's real easy to do. Just open up your grease trap and see if there's grease.
So I'd like to close out the, I don't know what the proper name on the head of the form is that we were talking about.
The non-compliance
Thank you.
form.
Thank you.
I guess the action item for me was to separate out the grease trap and the interceptor if I'm on the right page
Yeah,
with
that
you.
was, I think that, was there any other modifications or additions? No. Okay, so I think that was it. And I personally would leave it to your discretion whether it's one form that refers to both or two separate. But the most, so that's good. The most meaty thing, though, for the commission, I think, to finally take a position of, once this form is ready, are we going to send them out? Are we going to start the process of these fees?
I guess I would ask Barb if it would be easier for her if it was one or the other, and it was something you could check off one or the other. Would that make it easier for you to, if you're sending out these notices?
Yeah, it would.
Okay.
And then you have some restaurants that'll have both.
Right, okay.
So,
Yeah.
So maybe put both, but
So maybe
have the
that-
ability to check one or the other or both.
Right, yeah.
non-compliant.
Okay.
Yeah.
good point. So maybe that's a good reason to keep it on one form.
Okay.
Yeah, good. So when this is done, we will start sending out notices to non-compliant establishments. Correct? I mean, we've taken
my
this position
understanding.
many times. I don't think we need to vote on it a third time. But I just want to make sure we're all clear, and Barb is clear, that as soon as this form's available, we will start sending it to non-compliant establishments
And assessing fees.
and assessing fees.
Okay. Are we moving on from grease traps, or are we?
No, as I wanted to talk about the form.
Okay.
I just deferred that so that we could
Okay.
finish the
I just
first
wanna
one.
make sure.
Yeah, no. So now the form, so the goal here was to have a form or two forms, whatever we decide, that everyone will be required to fill out. It will become part of our policy so that it's formalized. Everyone will have to use that one. And it will contain, it'll be as simple as we can make it, but contain relevant information. And again, I think Troy's has gotten us, again, 90% of the way there. So I would open up for discussion on any inputs on the proposed form or maintenance log, I think is,
Yeah, this is the one where,
yeah.
big one with all the lines.
So any input, questions, comments from the,
And that was done,
Commission?
may I,
yeah, well, that's a
That was
question or
just
comment, I
done.
think.
before Troy did the non-compliance, so that's taking it even further. This was trying to figure out, or try to have a really clean way of knowing if someone's not in compliance. If everything isn't checked off, then now you're not in compliance, instead of the piecemeal things that I'm getting.
Right.
We just needed, right now, the regulations have our logs in there that, for the interior and exterior, and it wasn't a complete picture. So trying to replace both of those with one, so that I can quickly look at somebody's record and see if they have been complying. So that came out before. And as far as the number of lines, I wasn't even counting. I was just trying to set it up for them to post, check, 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 and we can verify that things have been received. So that's behind that.
I guess Barb sort of already responded to the inquiry I had, was the number of lines. I might suggest that we limit it to a year at a time, at least.
Yeah.
Anything beyond that is a lot of information to hold.
But a year, if we have weekly inspection, a year is
Right.
52 lines.
Yeah, so that's only, I don't know how many are there, so that's like 6 months. Is that what you had in mind, or?
I was just thinking they'd make a copy and start a new form when they got, when they filled up every week. But we could
You can-
number it better, or, do something better.
Multiply.
How often are you looking to get this information from people, or from?
They're required to give us something monthly, but they are required to check off that they've performed cleanings weekly. So I'm assuming that something like this would be posted and then sent to me on a monthly basis, saying, here is what we're doing.
Should we say that on the log, say, well, then this is required to be sent to the commission's office monthly by the end of the month?
Yeah.
There should be a deadline on here as,
There should be something in black and white on there so they understand it.
yeah.
But, okay, it does,
Otherwise,
maybe it's
they're
not big
gonna
enough.
say they didn't know
Maybe
they
it's
were
not big
supposed to
enough,
do
but I think it does say that, Dave.
Where?
Well, it says, documentation submitted monthly to the sewer office.
All right, so,
Maybe it should say this form or something.
yeah, let's make it bigger. It must be, and put the fax number and everything.
I'm sorry, did you say should?
This says documentation, it just says documentation submitted monthly to sewer office.
Must be provided to the Lunenburg Sewer Commission as required by
Must be.
grease trap regulations.
Well, I noticed I said earlier, a lot of the form said should, and I really think that from when you require a form, it should state something more definitive or strongly than should on these forms. If they must be submitted, then they must be submitted. Should sort of implies that it's an optional or.
Yeah, you don't want to leave it as an option. You're right.
And that's just my I think it,
Absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
it gives the impression to people out there that if it's must or shall, then, yeah, I have to do this.
Right,
So-
yeah. I 100% agree. So maybe it's just, maybe we want to make these things bigger.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing that would be good to have real clear on here is, and maybe right across the top, that, because this is supposed to be posted, right? Post this near Grease Trap or something, right on the top of this.
Well, they can post it where they put their workman comp papers.
That's a good point.
That's what it should be.
Yeah, it just has to be posted in a visible place, I guess, so that whoever's in there inspecting can go over and look at it without anything else.
Not to open a can of worms, but the monthly, reporting,
Mm-hmm.
could we consider, I mean, the form obviously is the form, it has to be done weekly, okay, there's no way around it. But could we consider going to quarterly to kind of simplify paperwork for everybody? It would simplify it for Bob, it would simplify it for, obviously we gotta get people in compliance, but to me, I'm just thinking of myself as a business owner,
Mm-hmm.
every month having to try and remember to send that out where, quarterly kind of, a little simpler.
Yep.
Does your microphone have a light on it? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Mine does.
Microphone?
Mike, is your mic?
Yes,
Mike?
it does.
It's lit?
All right, just got to get closer.
Can you put it closer to
What'd you say?
you? I'm sorry.
No problem.
Mike, put the mic closer to your
Test,
mic.
Yeah,
test,
Mike. Yeah.
Test.
Now you look like Bowie.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear a thing you said, Mike. Can
Yeah,
you repeat
right.
everything you just said?
So Mike wants to know if monthly is really too much.
Just thinking about it.
Yeah,
It would simplify it for Bob, it would simplify it for.
Because I keep harping, because it really, I think the way to simplify it is a 25% rule. Then you don't have to submit it
Sure.
monthly. If you have to clean it monthly, it seems that it would be appropriate to submit it monthly, but I don't have a strong feeling. I think I have a less strong feeling if we have a mechanism where somebody is randomly going in to confirm it.
How about if you made this with enough lines for a quarterly report?
Turn it the
Instead
other
of all
way.
this, just make it, give them a little bit more space in there, but less entries.
Mhm.
It's filled out quicker, we should get it quicker. No,
The regs require 30 days. We'd have to
I
change the
think
regs.
at this point, too, we should also state for the record that there are provisions in our regulations that if you're not compliant with the reporting whenever they come in to inspect, that you're in violation. So all of those penalties still apply. So you're responsible for keeping up with this information. You're responsible for documenting it. You're responsible for the photographs that go along with that. And if you're not compliant, then you are in violation. So I just think it should be stated for the record.
Yeah, no, good, thank you. So what's the sense, we can change the it's our policy, we can change it, the reporting requirements. What's the,
Personally, I like the once a quarter. I mean, you're trying to run a business too, so, I mean, if you follow the 25% rule, you fall right into that anyway, so. I mean, I would go the once a quarter for reporting to Barbara and put a deadline on it. Must be in by April 1st or,
I still think an education meeting with the owners would solve a lot of problems.
I agree with that, but when we first started this, I think I went out to 10 of the people and talked to them in person at a table, and it needs follow-up. That's the problem, and there was just no follow-up.
How about if you make it, they don't get their permit to open until they've attended one?
Well, that's what he's putting on here with the
So now
actions
there's no
taken.
ignorance, there's
Yeah.
no excuse to the law.
I mean, the actions, I mean, I like that a lot. So now it goes with you have the teeth on this versus what we did before.
yeah, I think with the teeth, and with something that people can really work with, I think we'll see some changing. Yeah, you'll see some improvement.
Well, and these are not teeth that I'm adding. These are teeth that have already been in the
Right.
regulations.
Right,
So
yeah.
They're just
they're not
brushing them
new. they've been out there available to people for some time now, so
Yeah. We're going to use them, though.
we're going to use it. But I just wanted to address to the public that these aren't new.
Yeah, unfortunately, nothing is new.
Don't blame you.
Right. Don't blame
You're a
me.
messenger, that's all.
Okay, overall, good work.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so any more changes on this? Because, we'd like to have this available for people to say, this is the one, that we're going to hold you to. So any other pits on this? I think we had, get some of these things a little
Bigger
larger.
deadlines.
Put a, post on the top, and,
I guess I would just add that I have no objection to them being quarterly, so if that's the preference of the commission.
No, as
then
long
that
as they
would-
do it on a regular basis, it's.
Right. So if that's the majority preference, that's certainly my preference as well.
Well, in the past, it seems like the more leeway you give somebody, the less reporting you get.
Yeah.
okay, I didn't follow that. Okay. What would it take to change that requirement?
Post that we're changing the regulations, and
But they won't be able
That's
to
all.
start it.
Well,
it'd have to be,
I'm not sure that were we suggesting changing the requirements or the regulations, or were we suggesting changing the form, the maintenance log?
the regulations state that the reporting is due in every 30 days.
Right,
so
I
we
guess I
have to
misunderstood. I
change.
thought we were suggesting that the maintenance log be quarterly driven.
Yeah, that's what I thought we were talking about, too.
Right, but it's in the regs.
I thought the proposal, which would make a difference to people, was that they're only required to send in the information quarterly instead of monthly.
Right.
The regs require monthly, so you'd have to change the regs.
Okay. Is that a
Just
town
so-
meeting?
just so we all
Is that a
understand.
town meeting thing, or?
No, I think it's a posting and,
Right, post it on the agenda and then advise.
okay, so why
I
don't
was
we?
speaking strictly to the maintenance log. I wasn't.
Okay.
Just so I'm clear.
So let's put it on
Motion.
a future agenda.
Okay,
You want to put a motion and change the reg? to
No,
quarter?
no, we need to put it on the agenda so we can
that we are
make such a
changing.
motion to
regs.
Yeah, in
change
case
them, and then we
anybody
post
that
it,
wants to
and
complain.
something like that. I don't know completely, Dave.
Okay.
I just know we need to have it on agenda first. Then we go.
And get you out the proposed language, so.
Are we done with the forms?
I think so, and, clear to you, Barb? You
Yep.
good? Great,
Thanks.
okay.
Mr. Chair, if I can, I know we're going to landlord-tenant discussion.
Yeah.
On
Next on the
that,
agenda, and this, Troy, we're good on those actions, Troy, for you? Everything you had, we're set with
I think so.
that far? Okay. So landlord-tenant discussion, and this is the issue where, for the people in the audience, we're in certain cases, at least one I know of directly, I guess there's maybe another, where there is a common external interceptor, grease trap interceptor externally that services more than one business. We really haven't come to grips with, okay, who's responsible, who gets the fees for non-compliance and so forth. So that's the subject on the agenda. And so Dave, you had?
well, a couple of things. One, with the landlord-tenant, I mean, that's part of the, if they're leasing out their property, they're probably paying a portion of it in their rents. But again, you have to look at the leases. But one of the things we talked about was changing food establishments by names. We know that Village Pizza, Nick was retired, which, by the way, I didn't get a chance to say bye to Nick. Nick, thank you for everything you've done for Lunenburg. But there's a new tenant going in, I presume. I would definitely put them on notice that may require an external grease trap. And again, that's in our regulations.
What is, it's a little different subject, but what is I can't remember right now, what is it that drives an interceptor versus a grease trap?
Oh.
No, what
Change it,
technology?
name change.
No, but what drives the tenant to requiring an interceptor versus a grease trap?
Whatever is going into the, if they have friolators, if they have,
Plumbing code.
friolators, really.
Isn't it?
So who makes that call? How do we, is that the plumbing, or is that the Board of Health?
That would probably be the plumbing.
plumbing,
Inspector.
okay.
Yeah, it's under mass plumbing.
It's gonna
code.
end up being us.
It probably is.
because you can't get the Board of Health or the plumber to help you now.
They were bored.
Well, no, it's more of a question of what's the Mass Code require. It's not up to us at all.
It
It's the
goes how
Mass
much
Code.
grease is, are they exporting or discarding? If you have 2 friolators in there, I think that's the limit where you have to look at an external grease trap. And that building is right on the border now, as far as the compliance with what was there. So I think the landlord should be put on notice that whoever rents it out to may require an external grease trap.
Yeah, and that's fine. I'm just trying to be a little more definitive what the action here is. I mean, who is it that's going to, does the new tenant have to go to the Board of Health?
The plans should be reviewed by the building inspector, and those plans should be submitted to Jack for review. If there's a new kitchen going in, even if it's an existing kitchen, those plans should be gone through us for a review check. And at that point, we may want to talk to Weston Sampson for a plan review to see if it's required.
I get, my only comment to this would be, I have concerns about non-compliance with tenants, and if we're not holding landlords in any way responsible, then if a tenant comes in, they're not compliant for a year, they skip town, whatever, then, you know, where do these non-compliance fees attach to?
Right.
What do they attach to?
Property.
I think that's in
Right,
our,
but
I think that's in our regulation, though.
in some way, then you would have to make the landlord aware and make them responsible for in some way.
Which we did. We sent out letters, if I remember right, to every landlord and the establishments, putting them both on notice that if for some reason their tenant runs, they're responsible. But ultimately, the landowner is responsible. If you're leasing the property, ultimately it's going to be the landlord, no matter what kind of lease you signed. If they're screwing up the town sewer system, that's going to cost the residents money, then we're going to hold the landlord responsible, including the tenant. Now you say the tenant leaves, but the grease trap stays. So the landlord would be responsible for that. Now, if they go bankrupt...
Well, and I
it's
agree
another
with
story.
you, but I would just say for the record that make sure that we document or that we provide notice for both the landlord and the tenant, and that we are making them aware of non-compliance, making the landlord aware of the non-compliance or the landowner aware
I
of
think we did
non-compliance.
that, so... I
Well,
think we
but
can check
so the
that.
question though is where are we right now? Because again, I'd like to have some specificity, because we have the situation where Ugly Omelet and Mickey Shays is. I'd like to give Ugly Omelet a plug right now regarding Geese Trap, because they are probably the most compliant regarding inspections and reports and the thoroughness of them and so forth. And I mean, they're a model. However, I don't know that they have anything to do or we get anything on the Interceptor, which supports both them and Mickey Shays.
Mr. Chair, if I
So
can
we're
make a
about to go out
suggestion.
and we're about to send out fee notices. Who does that go to?
Mr. Chair, I would send them out to each restaurant owner and put the landlord on copy. They all know about it. I thought we've been doing that anyway.
So which owner
Where do
in
we
that case
grant,
do you?
where do we grant the permit to? To whom do we grant the permit, and how do we allow a shared interceptor?
Yeah, we don't. The regulations are written to address the food service establishment, so it's not, the permits are each based on each establishment. It's not necessarily a permit for the landlord.
So
Might have two
in
establishments.
that situation, when that restaurant opened, how did it come about that they were granted permission to use a shared interceptor? Okay.
Miss-
No one was minding the store, it was before the grease trap.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
The way an interceptor or any kind of a common use item works in a mall or in this case, Mickey Shays, landlord is renting the tenants their space. Then they charge them common area charges. Now, the common area charges are usually for anything that goes into the building or out of the building. So water going in, if the landlord decides to have it separate metered, they pay their own bills. Anything out in the parking lot is usually part of the common area. Landlord would be responsible for that, including cleaning a grease trap. So when you
It's the same as the maintenance on the
it's maintenance. So if you sign a lease, and if I'm sharing an interceptor with you, I don't care. I'm not going to pay the whole bill. Usually the landlord does it and then bills back accordingly with water or something like that. So again, I would put the landlord on notice because it's in his parking lot. If it's an interior grease trap, different story. Ugly omelet, they're responsible for their own interior. Exterior, totally landlord.
So I'm not sure that's the situation right now, right? So
No, it
we need to
sounds
clear that,
clear.
because I agree with you, and that makes common sense. Not only does it sound like it's the way it works, but, so the interceptor, the external common device, really should be the responsibility of the landlord. So we should be
Bill and
requiring the landlord
Mhm.
to keep these records, make the submittals and so forth, just like a standalone establishment with an interceptor.
And then he would-
Mickey Shays and
He would proportionally
Ugly
charge back.
have to, and that's up to him, I don't really care.
It's up to him. Now, the landlord may have worked out a deal, but we don't care.
Right,
That
exactly.
that external grease interceptor is in his property,
Right.
or on his property. He's responsible for it.
So we need
Can't
to,
chase the restaurant owner, because once they move and they're gone, you don't have anything on them.
That's correct.
But the landowner,
It's his.
you have, that's his.
Yeah. Anything external, usually the
You have
landlord
somewhere
is
to
responsible.
attach the fine.
so we need to fix this then, because that's not the way it is today or has been for years.
I never saw their leases, so.
Well, they don't show up on our list of establishments. right?
Who
I mean, we
doesn't?
don't show the landlord on our list.
No, we
But they're
include
paying
them
the
in a
bill, right?
mailing, but we
Not the
don't.
landlord.
No, are those
It's another
restaurants
check on our
paying the bills?
compliance.
The Ugly Omelet and Mickey Shays are paying their annual fee.
Maybe that's a deal they worked out with the landlord.
Right, but if
But
if
they're not
we're not getting the
responsible for the
information
interceptor.
on the
We
interceptor.
want to enforce through the landowner
Right.
or the landlord.
For the interceptor.
Do they have interior grease traps and exterior grease trap?
Yeah.
Okay, then we should be talking to the landlord. They're paying their portion for the interior grease traps, not the
Yeah,
exterior.
they're, well, right.
Okay, yeah, I would send a letter to the landlord.
And I don't know if that's in our regs. That might be something else to look at.
That the
But the
landlord.
landlord is responsible.
I
Because we
think,
mostly deal with food services. down
I think we put that in the regs though when we started the sewer thing, that ultimately the landlord's gonna be responsible for their property, interior and exterior.
I just,
So-
I don't remember seeing it.
And any changes in use or name,
Right.
we sent letters to all the landlords saying that even if you change the name, you may be required to follow the new regulations,
Right.
which happened at Bangkok Hill, I think.
Can I ask who owns the interceptor? Who actually?
Usually the landlord
Landlord.
would put it in.
So they own the interceptor. They've applied for the permit for it. They are responsible for it with the town. Is that correct? You don't know?
That's how it should be.
That's how it should be.
It was part of, I know for that site, it was part of the original design. When Asian went in, I think Asian put it in, if I recall. But we have another one with Dario's and Ixtapa too, same situation. A shared,
That,
I don't
again,
know what the
to me, that would fall under a generic maintenance. Landlord gets a bill, he shares it
right.
50/50, however he wants to do it.
But it's another, chink on here.
So is the landlord, so then it would follow that the landlord also would need to pay an annual permit fee?
Yep.
In addition to his two tenants?
And again, he could either back charge his tenants or whatever it is in his common area charges.
If his tenant sends you a check for the payment, that's between him and the
Exactly.
landowner.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
As long as we get our payment, I don't care how they do it.
But it works the same way, Mr. Chair, as plowing. The store owners aren't going to plow. Landlord plows the parking lot, charges each tenant portion of what it costs to plow.
Right.
Again, that falls on the common maintenance. Sewer backups, anything from the street out, usually is a landlord.
All right, so
I guess from a common sense perspective, it all makes sense, but from a legal perspective, I'm not sure that that's the way we've gone about it in the past. So I'm not sure really who is on the hook based on not knowing who's granted the permit, who has been licensed to operate, who's been licensed, I don't know how we've gone about it as a town to get that grease through there. It all sounds common sense right now, but I don't know. And I do think that if it's not on the landlord or the landholder now, that we should make it so.
Right.
It should be that way.
Yeah.
So I would suggest in this case, and if you say the taxo, however you pronounce that, is a similar situation, Barb, where there's a common interceptor and probably, there has to be grease traps internal because
Right.
they for sure have dishwashers, right? Is there another case? So is those two cases? Are there any more?
Is that the only one we have
Well,
that's shared?
Village Grill,
There's
the
two.
whole
Two?
So far,
The
Butch,
whole-
we're good. Maybe another one? Wait a minute.
Main Street is owned by the RCD Group, and it includes both Village Grill and the Hadwin Market, which we have. So there's a lot of landlords
And
actually
they,
involved. Can't think
here,
of any more.
I guess if there's an external interceptor, then the landlord comes into play. But if it's only an internal
That would be.
trap, then it's, Then
Again,
it's
whatever
the tenant,
deal,
right?
whatever deal they work out
Tenant.
with the landlord without seeing the lease. We're assuming that the landlord is saying, listen, here's your space, you build it out any way you want. But you gotta follow local and national codes. That's where the grease trap interceptors come in for the dishwashers. And the outside of the building, again, it would probably be the landlord's putting in the grease trap and going back and build a tenant. What we did when we started our grease trap policies a few years ago was, and if you go back, we sent notices out to every landlord that has restaurants or future restaurants saying any name changes, any name changes, any use changes, any expansion changes, it has to be approved by the sewer commission. And we had a local restaurant that happened to, we just happened to come across it, that changed. So this should be just a standard follow procedure, but I agree with Troy, we should be sending out notices again that, we're enforcing these grease traps and there's a name change coming up at the center of town. Now, I wasn't aware that Hadlin's was connected to the same lines. Is that correct?
They're all tenants.
Yeah, but
Is
they're
it connected to the
separate
same
buildings. Well, are they going through the same sewer system, or is one going out one way, one going to another way?
I think the external interceptor is only for the village.
They don't have an external.
is there an
interceptor.
external? I don't think there is.
He doesn't have one, that's why I'm
There is
concerned.
That's what you're trying to do.
Right.
Okay, no.
Well, he has the little grease dumpster outside. And that, in fact, we went there, if you remember right, and we went over the policy with Nick on how to do the grease, and he showed us what he was doing, which was totally legal. In fact, I think, Carl, you and I were there with that.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
But that's one place that,
Gas.
one thing that really needed an interceptor. But now I'm concerned that if the market and the restaurant are on the same line, you're getting a double whammy going down the drain. You know what I'm saying? If Hadlin's came out to one street and Village came out to another, but if they're both on the same line,
Yeah.
then you're probably going to kick in the external grease trap.
Well, it's gotta be in the regulation now.
Yep.
If a landlord who owns land is gonna be leasing to multiple establishments that require a grease trap, you gotta tell the landowner right up front.
Right. And that's
Before you start separating your rentals,
so he'll
you gotta have the grease trap in.
because that could affect his lease negotiation with someone else coming in.
Yeah.
Because a grease trap, the last time I heard about a grease trap going was about $7,500, an external grease trap. They may have gone up for the last couple of years. I haven't put one
But
in
then
for a
you
while.
gotta clean them too.
And then there's maintenance.
And how do you figure out which establishment is getting the most grease in?
And that's when you proportion the bills out by square footage. The
Yeah.
landlord says 5,000 square feet, you get 2,000.
That's how they do their plowing and every other maintenance
Right.
in them big lots.
But I would seriously talk to the building inspector and the DPW director about whatever happens at the old Village Pizza. We need to keep track of the grease.
I would say that I think that our regulations cover it. It's just depend on how we license it or how it's permitted. And it may not be being permitted or licensed to the proper entity based on what we want to do. And then again, I would caution that if it's a tenant and they're no longer there, there
They're subject
really
to
is
a
no
new-
recourse for the town or to recoup any of that.
I think the biggest thing, Troy, we put in when we did this a few years ago was for that reason. If a restaurant leaves And we didn't want, when we started the grease trap policy in Lunenburg, we didn't want to put hardship on an existing restaurant. But at the time also, we knew we had a serious grease problem going on, and we wanted to do it fairly. And the only way to do it fairly was a change of use, either by name or by whatever. In this case, if a pizza parlor leaves and another pizza parlor comes in, doesn't matter. They have to follow the new regulations. Now, if it was equipped with the equipment necessary to provide the old building, I don't have a problem with that. But if you have a pizza place going in that distributes a lot of grease, then the exterior grease trap policy should go into effect. But the only way to do that is our building inspector should notify Jack or the commission and let the engineers look at what he's doing. But this thing is like, well, it was a pizza parlor before, it's going to be a pizza parlor again. No, it doesn't work that way.
Right,
Yeah.
and it may need to be a joint venture
Or review the
in
drawings.
some respects.
And some of the drawings may be just a handwritten, like we had a local restaurant moved in, hardly ever much grease. I think you and I went down. We actually did the inspections, and it wasn't required an external, but they fulfilled their part of the laws and regulations. This one could be a bigger thing.
So, do we need to revisit who is getting the permit and who is responsible then? Because right now, because of this point of, if a tenant gets up and walks away, there's no recourse. So should we consider that everything is through the landlord? The landlord is
Ultimately, yeah,
really responsible.
external. We're just talking externals.
What about, why would internal be different from the point of view of the tenant walking away?
Because that would be up to the landlord. He would either recoup or reuse the space. So everything that's in a store or a
I mean,
restaurant.
walking away from, something goes bad and there's a lien or something. Where does the lien go?
Well, the lien would go, what do you mean? If the tenant jumps on the
If
landlord?
there's a fine that's not paid, or a fee that's not paid.
Ultimately, it goes back to the landowner.
But how does that happen legally if he's not the party that is responsible?
The landlord, that's why we kept saying to Bob, make sure we send out notices to the landlords, because ultimately they're responsible for their building. So if a tenant goes bad, it goes into bankruptcy, landlord still has to pay those bills.
I'm sitting here, you're probably right, you have a much better memory than I do. I'm not sure that we have the legal trail to hold the landlord responsible in what we're doing today.
I think we might want to sit back and revisit that and just cover our assets.
Make sure it's covered,
Yep.
right?
But it's also common sense.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But if you have
No
a-
question, but because we've always been just talking about and sending letters to and, notices to the
You can-
tenant.
You can go, well, no, I know we sent them to the, every landlord.
I'm sure we sent something way back when, but not.
They're not
I mean,
fine.
if we didn't have this discussion, I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
that she would have done what I thought we said tonight.
I might
which
have
was
a copy of
Send
it.
these fines or fees to the establishment, not to the landlord.
But we're only talking, again, I want to emphasize, exterior. Interior,
No, I'm not, I'm talking interior also.
interior, if the place goes dark, what we call it, and they jump ship.
And they owe us $5,000.
Right. If they jump ship and they owe us money, ultimately it goes back to the landlord,
How?
because they're the landowner. That property is what generates, it's just like a tax. The property is what generated the expense.
Wouldn't we have had to put a lien on the property?
We would have to put a lien on the property.
Then therefore the landlord would have had to been, we need to run this to ground and make sure that we're covered, that whatever, that the ownership stays with the landlord in the worst case.
But I can give you another example. What happens to the water bill? What happens to the electric bill? All those bills get paid by the landowner. It's up to him to recoup the money. But utilities are utilities. So you have a store
I'm not
that-
sure that's the way it works, actually. I think if you, yeah, non-electric, if you don't pay your electric bill, when it transfers back into the landlord, then, but, and we certainly don't want to encumber landlords to the point where it's going to be very difficult for them to rent or make it impossible for them
Right.
to make their properties attractive. But, and maybe that's where we talk about some sort of joint agreement, and that they are made aware of the fact that If your tenant's not in compliance, they're getting a notice and you're getting a notice. And at some point in time, if there's a lien, it's going to go against the property and not, the tenant doesn't have any property to lien generally, so.
Right, right. Yeah, okay, so let's work on making sure that
And
that's all
maybe
clean.
town council has some.
Yeah, some way to do that.
But any notice that goes out should always go to the landlord as well.
I agree.
You know, and that's what I thought we've been doing over the last few years. Every landlord, yeah. No, but we've been sending them to the landlords, right? Yeah.
Right, unless, I mean, in the generic sense, we haven't been recently with the, you're not compliant. I don't think. I need to look.
Yeah, just take
I
a
know
look.
we have included the landlords
I mean,
often.
if you have a freestanding building, like a restaurant in town who owns the building and the business, that's a different story. But if you're, I know we've been doing,
Yeah.
I've seen copies to the landlord that this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
Okay,
We may have sent it on a follow-up when we didn't hear word back from the tenant, I think. That's when we got
I mean,
that
that's-
resolved.
Been kind of hopefully our standard practice, that's what we talked about. Okay,
okay. I think that's enough for grease trap.
yeah.
We talked about
Yeah,
the
it's
mailing
getting
already,
slippery.
so that's good. Okay, let's move to the next agenda item. This is our betterment project on Pratt and Lakeview areas. The bids are out. We have been informed that there's something on the order of 12 or 13 companies who have requested bid packages, I guess.
Oh, good.
It's up
More
to them.
response than
14
they
as of
thought,
today,
huh?
so 14, it's going up all the time.
A lot of people out there want to work.
Yeah, that's great. So, and the bids are due, I'm sorry, the pre-bid meeting, which is the next step in the process, which is just open to anyone who has the bid package to come in and ask any questions, get any additional information that they need to do a good job. That's tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock here in Town Hall. I will attend that, and anyone else is certainly welcome to come sit in. Bright Pierce will be here, and they'll pretty much orchestrate the session, and Jack will be here to represent the DPW. And then on the 15th of April at 2 p.m. in Town Hall, the bids will be opened. And that should be when the contractor is selected. All simple and straightforward, I think, or is it a week after that?
I
Wright
think it's a
Pierce
week
has to
after
go do a
that. Yeah,
write-up,
they
right?
take
Yeah,
it
they
back
have to take
and
it.
study
Yeah.
and make sure that they're qualifying. So I don't think it's immediate.
Okay. And
Didn't we back up a week from the May 8th through the May 22nd? I thought
Yeah.
Kevin, So
I
that's
think he thought
changed.
that was
okay,
generous or something. He
Yeah.
didn't think it was going to take
that's
that
what they're
long.
targeting, but
a week,
they're trying to pull
Prior.
it in a week, yeah.
so that'll be
Depends on what we see.
the 18th, okay. And then the notice to proceed would go out by June or May 29th.
Right, with a target for, I believe, start work in July, by July. And again, somewhere I would just guess, and we'll just decide at the next meeting, probably around the beginning of June. Certainly before the beginning of June, we should be able to have the information meeting with the residents. And just for information purposes, I'm sure the residents know that the National Grid work on Pratt is commencing, I guess,
Yep, we got a notice.
working now.
To Bob.
Yep. So that'll be done well in advance of us needing to go in.
Mr. Chair, has Kevin talked to National Grid about paving the roads or sharing the paving? Instead of putting the burden on the whole town, they should do their share of helping pay for the paving of that street?
Not that I'm aware of.
I know we requested from Kevin to ask.
That's all.
Okay, anything else on that? We'll move on to inflow and infiltration.
Right. We can tell Joe to
Okay,
put that
so-
back up.
Joe, if you could please put up on the screen for the viewers out there the map of the area. This is the second phase of us trying to cut down on inflow and infiltration. And the main target is any water that's coming into our system directly. Sump pumps are a big target. Drains of any sort, anything that's not sewerage that's coming into the sewer system is what we're looking for. There'll be a house-to-house survey in the area that's shown on the map. And I think, thank you, Joe. Yeah, so if you live in that area, it's a pretty big area, you should be receiving notices will go out later this week of these inspections. You're encouraged to contact Weston and Sampson, who is doing the work. Their crews and engineers will be coming around, and you can schedule when this event occurs, and they'll try to fit into your life. They'll be making 2 trips around, so if they don't have, when they don't have people scheduled, they will still come to town and start knocking on doors in an attempt to get all the houses covered. We did very well with this effort last year and got like 90-something% of the homeowners scheduled or answered the door. And then the last couple, we had to go knock on separately. Jack Watkins of the DPW helped get the last couple of stragglers. So we intend to one way or another, get access to all of the houses in this area. Joe, I can't tell what's up, but if the street listing isn't up, it might be easier for people to look at the street and addresses that are affected. I think probably, nothing's always true, but I think if you live on one of those streets, the numbers are there too, but I think if you live on one of those streets and you're on sewer, then you're a participant in this inspection. Okay. So if you could please help us out on that. We were able, with, again, the residents' helps, we were able to make a significant improvement in the inflow and infiltration, which helps the sewer bills, which will keep the rates down. So it's very much in everyone's interest to participate and, allow access. Just so you know, we do have the right to access the properties. So it's, we're asking for your support, but we need to get in there one way or another.
So, Mr. Chairman, just so I have it correct, we're talking about Mass Ave, Northfield Road, Main and Oak, Whiting Street, and down Lancaster Ave. Is that
Lancaster, yeah, Hillside Drive, Main, Memorial Drive, you said Oak Riley, School Street, Stevens Street, Turkey Hill Road, Whiting Street, and West Street. Plus the...
So it's a little beyond what's highlighted on the...
in some of these cases, like Townsend Harbor Road is just the house on the corner, I believe. So do you think these streets go outside of what's highlighted? That wouldn't be
Well,
good.
I'm trying to find Turkey Hill on here.
It's the old Cronin property that.
Well, I know where Turkey Hill is,
Right,
but
but
I
it's
don't see
nobody
it
else.
highlighted.
No other property on Turkey Hill is.
Okay.
It's
Turkey
just
Hill
that
Road, yeah,
one.
I
They
just rode.
listed one Turkey Hill.
I know you're coming to my house, so.
I saw that.
You better be ready for inspection.
Yeah, we were going to go right after this meeting, actually.
Matter of fact, while this
I hope you
meeting
have
goes
refreshments
on,
ready.
yeah,
Yeah, Butch and I are leaving soon, so we're going to have a party over there.
That's a going away party. We didn't tell you?
Bob, is there a way you can put this map on our website, the town website?
Yeah.
A copy of the inspection notice that comes out? That
might want to get a little bit bigger
Yeah.
names and numbers so you can read it.
Okay, so that's our spring inflow and infiltration reduction project. There is one, under inflow and infiltration, there is one timely matter that I would like to also add to this that we've discussed before, and it regards the manhole inspections and whatever comes of that. But the first step is to inspect all of our over 300 manholes. We were given a proposal, as you know, from one company to do that work for $25,000 was the proposal. Dave's, Dave? Yeah, okay.
Cheaper to
I was
pay
waiting
for
for the choking. We don't have that in this year's budget, nor did we put it in next year's budget. We do have more I&I work, but we did not have the plan to do manholes. You're also aware that we had talked about a grant opportunity that we were looking at for the CWMP update. At our last meeting, we determined, along with Wright Pierce's help, that we wouldn't score very high on that, and that it really wasn't worth the effort of theirs or ours to go after that for the
Should
CWMP,
still try.
which we do have funding at least in, so we can do that anyway. But in my discussion with Wright Pierce offline and looking at the grant, it looked to me that the manholes could qualify. And I asked Wright Pierce, they took a look at that and feel that there is, they went on a limb, said, a better chance than the CWMP of succeeding.
Could you combine them both? CWP and?
Well, it's only a 30,000, these grants are only up to 30,000
It's only
maximum.
30.
So you couldn't get both
Much more.
within 30, so, but good thought, it might improve the score.
Yeah.
They did think, discussion today with both Kevin and Matt at Wright Pierce, they did think it was a pretty good chance, not a slam dunk, they don't know what the competition's going to be like, but that it was a good enough chance to be worth doing. It clearly costs some time and energy on their part and our part to do that. So I would like to throw for discussion us doing that. Basically, we would sort of split the risk with Wright Pierce. They're willing to, to support some of it on their nickel, but not carry the whole burden, which I think is fair because the probability is not, so high that,
How much are we talking?
So we're talking on our part, it would be a couple $1,000s to get the,
A couple thousand, try to get 30?
to try to get 30. Now, and the other half, so to me, for a decent chance, and Wright Pierce is pretty successful. They know,
Yeah.
they know these government organizations. I think it's a good investment. The other thing, though, we would have to make a commitment to is part of the grant requires match, as we had talked before. They took a look, and I guess the match is dependent on the community you're in and the average wages and all these good things. For us, it would be a 25% match. So if we decided to go forward, it would be a $2,000 upfront to get the proposal done, and then a commitment to another up to $7,500 if we're successful to get the work done.
And that $25,000 would identify issues and problems, and it would also include mapping them out in our GIS and
I-
putting but no repair. Is that?
Yeah, no repair. The mapping, and maybe there's different
It's
levels,
separate.
and you're talking about a level that
Okay.
that I'm thinking of, because we have released a contract, a very low,
Yeah.
to go put the data we have in the system, basically, is what we're getting. So you wouldn't have to do that again.
And we're numbering all our manholes. That was a separate.
Yeah, that's the contract we've just released for
Okay.
very reasonable money, I think. This, though, would be essentially the same thing that the other contractor was talking to us about. It would be inspect every manhole, document it in whatever way necessary, pictures, documentation, provide a report and recommendations in terms of what to do.
And, Mr. Chair, the only comment I have on that is, I don't like the deal at all. I think if I go for the grant, and I know Butch and I won't be here, but I would strongly recommend you go out and bid that out again to somebody else. I just thought the price was very high for what we were going to get back. And if I remember right, all we're going to get back is a pitcher.
3 pitches.
Yeah, 3 pitches. And for that kind of money, I think it's, yeah.
I kind of have to agree with Dave's sentiment there, that even though it's grant money, so you kind of get the feel that it
Well,
doesn't
it's not
cost you
wasted.
anything.
Yeah.
You don't just, I just don't, that 25,000 to me just seems like an awful lot of money,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
We're talking, I know we're talking 300, but
Yeah, I agree, and that's the thing that brings it home, because $25,000 is a lot of money.
yes.
And I agree with you that we need to get better proposals and go forward, and presumably you would think Wright Pierce would have pretty good information to be able to go do something,
Yeah.
something good. However, what did bring it home to me, though, Mike, is I mean, I didn't realize there were 350 or so manholes. It really works out to about $65 a manhole. So
Again,
that, that's not a lot of time at every manhole by a couple people, and maybe, and you need some police details in order to do these manholes. They're down the middle of the damn 2A, right?
and some of them are on the back streets.
Some are on the back street. And I tell you, I've been since that 25,000, I've been looking at every manhole I drive over and bang my car into. And there are a lot, about every 30 feet on 2A, there's a damn manhole. It's crazy.
Take some
But
pictures.
Anyway, yeah.
Are we in any way obligated to move forward with this vendor if we get the grant through them, or
There's been no commitments made.
Once we're awarded the grant, we could go with anyone we
Not if
choose?
we're paying
Yep.
them to run the grant.
So right now, you're just looking for, I guess, would you be looking for a motion on just moving forward with
The 2,000.
pursuing the grant for 2,000?
I'm primarily looking for that motion, with the understanding
With the
that we are
understanding.
committing to an additional 7,500 if we should be successful.
And one question, do we have that money in our reserves anyways, if this does happen? You're paying 9,500 to get 30,000.
Yeah, my sense is we certainly can cover the 2,000. The work has to be done within a year, so it has to be done before the end of our next fiscal year. We may find as we come to the end of this year that we have the 7,500 that we could
Yes.
commit. And that would be nice, then we don't have to take anything into next year. And because we haven't spent much of our engineering funding yet.
That's what I was saying.
If we're careful there, I think we could fund it this year.
If you look at the budget, I know you can carry it in the engineering part of it alone.
That would be lovely, because we kept a pretty tight budget next year, we think, so it'd be nice if we can cover it this year. Get the work done, get the contract released, get the money encumbered, but get it done.
I know we'll be covered for the 75 if we do get it.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion for the 2,000 to move forward with Wright Pierce to see if we qualify for the,
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Butch. Any further discussion?
Do you want in that motion with the understanding that we may spend an additional 75?
I think it'd be good to tie to it if you felt you wanted to modify the motion by that and it was
Do I have to
acceptable.
modify that?
I'm sorry, to modify it to, that we would be limited to 7,500 after?
Yep.
Is that,
With the we go forward with the $2,000 for.
with the I'll modify it to, with the understanding that the grant would only obligate us up to $7,500
Or 25%.
beyond the
Yeah.
2,000.
Right. A second to the modified motion?
Yep, you got it.
Thank you, Butch.
I thought it was all part of the first motion.
I just want to
We
make it
knew-
clear.
We knew what it was,
I did too, but.
yeah.
I didn't hear Barb type that.
You
though.
spend the 2,000, if you get the grant, you know you gotta spend the other 7,500. I mean,
See-
it's pretty black and white.
See, you and I won't be here, so the new
Good.
people can say.
Black
"Oh,
and white."
Damn.
Okay, all in
The
favor?
selectmen, out of the goodness of their hearts, will give us the money.
Aye.
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 Done deal. Aye, no, I said it.
Aye, all in favor. Oh, it's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, town meeting. This should be pretty quick. It's just more of an update for those watching. We did have our review of the budget, FY16 budget, with the Finance Committee, and I will just briefly tell you what that looks like. Just for your information, some of the numbers, we now have 1,120 people who have access to the sewer system and 730 residences that are connected, so we still have some growth in users without any additional extensions, which is
growing.
which is great. And that would help operating budgets. From next year's operating budget point of view, the FY15 this year's budget was $814,000. Next year, we're looking at expenses in our budget of $848,000. That's an increase of 4.2%. which is pretty reasonable. We sharpened our pencils this year to try to assure that we were in a good positive sense. The revenue stream we project as increasing by 12.8% to $918,000. And that'll give us the last 2 years. Hopefully, you remember we ran a break-even budget, no transfers from retained earnings. This year, we're projecting to run a positive bottom line of close to $70,000, $69,000. The other thing we're doing this year, and we'll be going forward, is we now are taking over reporting responsibility for the Betterment Fund, and that's the fund from the initial betterment that put the system in place. Right now, this year, it just happens, and we got more revenue up front when people paid off instead of spreading it out over 20 years. So right now, we are running a net cash flow negative there of about $147,000. So the overall enterprise fund, with our improved performance on the operating side, is going to run about a $77,000 deficit. We've looked out through 2028, so over 10 years from now, and the fund is secure. It will stay in the red. And that's with very conservative projections. So we don't see any problems going forward unless there are some big surprises, which we are not.
Did you
aware
mean to say stay in the red?
of. Did I say stay in the red?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No wonder you winced.
You're killing me.
Dave doesn't like red. I'm sorry. The enterprise fund in total will stay positive. Total positive cash flow. So any other comments on the budget or anything happening on that world?
Mr. Chair, I saw you and Barb do your presentation to the Finance Committee, and thank you very much for the words for all of us, but we couldn't have done it with this team, so it's been fun, but you guys did a great job at the presentation.
Thank you, Dave. Okay.
Once again, it's nice to
sorry,
see a
Mike.
balanced budget.
Yes.
It's nice to see us making
It's
money.
better than balanced, better. The only other two things relative to town meeting, we do have 3 warrant articles the Sewer Commission does. One is our budget, which I just told you about. The other is establishing a capacity stabilization fund. And this is to, we had to buy capacity from Fitchburg, which we will start paying for soon. As a result, we implemented a capacity fee at the time of connection. So any new betterment connections will have a capacity fee to help pay for that capacity we had to buy from Fitchburg. Right now, we haven't started the payments yet, so the cash we're taking in has to be reserved somewhere. So we're establishing a stabilization fund, which can only be used for buying capacity. The other warrant is Pleasant View Ave betterment that I mentioned earlier. We have that on the warrant. It's a $300,000 projected total cost. That'll be provide capability to about 12 users on Pleasant View Ave. So that's the other warrant that will be presented at town meeting, and I hope we get everybody's support on that, because the people on Pleasant View have been needing this for quite a while, and we're happy that we can help them out with it.
Mr. Chair, one
Yes.
thing on Pleasant View. I know over the last couple of years, this commission went out and met the residents and talked about signing the betterments and the paperwork. And I know we brought to this board 6 months ago a situation where some people just can't afford either the betterment or a septic. And that bothered us, if you remember right. So I went to the Board of Health and asked about their program, and I got stonewalled. But I talked to Mr. Ebersol, and I just want to thank him for working that out and getting the fund going for people who really need it, who can't afford it. At least they can come to the town and say, here, let me help you. And thank you to you and the board for doing that for the residents. I know it's not quite ready yet. I'm sure you guys are going to be announcing it, but if you didn't take the lead on it, I mean, I was trying to go through the state. So again, Mr. Ebersol, I thank you for helping the residents in town. So I guess the policy will soon be coming out. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you. Speaking of funding and so forth, I forgot to mention on the Pleasant View Ave, Wright Pierce did go to the DEP about a modification or a possible modification, just to get an indication, not in a formal request. But the indication was very positive. So Barb is working with them now. They're drafting a letter that we will formally send in. So they think because Pleasant View is part of that same sewer area or CWMP, it didn't seem like the DEP was worried about the percentage increase. So that looks very, very promising that could be included under the SRF funding, so low interest.
Okay. So the 300,000 then, is that going to be part of the plans that went out, or is it going to be handled as a separate change order or something?
That's going to have to be handled as a change order or separately. We're not
A separate thing.
you're not required to do anything, but change order is sort of the first thought. But being so far along in the process right now of the bids and so forth out, we keep moving with that.
I just want to thank the people on Pleasant View. They're nice people, and I'm glad they got what they needed up there.
Yep, it's all working out very well. The next agenda item, we had talked about previously at a sewer commission meeting, but I wanted to take advantage of being on the air here and maybe the next 4 months of replays. Just to inform people of something that's available. We're not in a position to recommend or not recommend, but my goal here is to make you aware of a couple of things and also to get feedback. If people out there are interested, then get a hold of Barb, and it would go up our list of priorities a little higher if there were people out there interested. If not, it'll be probably a slow burn. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to read to you a letter to the editor that was in the Sentinel some months ago. It was written by Bob Salvatelli, who's an at-large city councilor in Leominster, and it's addressed. The title is "Insure Yourself Against Costly Sewer Repairs." Caught my eye. And it's addressed to the, and I'm not a good reader here, so bear with me, please. Letter goes, "Dear citizens of Leominster," so again, please remember this is addressed to the citizens of Leominster. "Recently, my home had a sewer issue that required extensive work to help solve a serious backup in my system. This was not the first time this problem had occurred, and extensive construction was needed to correct the first incident. It was because of these types of problems we purchased the new sewer insurance provided by the city from a company called Safety Value. This insurance was made possible by the work of a citizen who heard of the plan in other cities and aggressively pursued getting our citizens the opportunity to purchase it for a reasonable cost. His work on this issue allowed us to take advantage of this plan. Citizens should be aware that it's the homeowner's responsibility for repairs for water and sewer problems from the middle of the road to your home. With tree roots and old homes, the chances are much greater to have a major problem of this kind. Costs could be as high as $5,000 for repair or replacement of pipes. This company was wonderful to work with and sent their competent team to the house and worked hours fixing the problem. They did not know I was an elected official, and I never told them. The problem was resolved at no cost to our house, including the cost of a visit from the DPW of $50. The owner of the construction company never left my house until the project was fixed, and he was satisfied with the work done. If a replacement were necessary, it would have been done at no cost. Hines Construction was the company doing the work, with owner Glenn Hines managing the job. I urge all citizens to contact the DPW for information about this insurance. Bob Salvatelli, at-large councilor, Leominster. And I'll say right away, in case Jack's out there panicking, do not contact the Lunenburg DPW for the sewage coverage. This was Leominster. But most of the other things are parallel. For the sewerage, and I won't speak to the water district because the water district has different processes than we do, but as far as the sewer goes, the homeowners are responsible for whatever happens from the lateral, or essentially the street, your property line, to your house. Further, and it's not mentioned here, but I did contact this company that they're talking about just to get an idea of what this was all about. Home insurance does not cover the sewer pipes, so my assumption was my home insurance would cover such a thing, but it does not. So you own the sewer pipe and whatever happens to it. Again, I'm not advocating this company, although I did contact this company. They do, as he says here, Leominster has worked with the company to make it available to the residents. We could do a similar thing here with this company or some other company. This company does, as you say, they have a local contracting firm, which from this letter sounds like they're pretty, they're pretty good. And that's why this company would be willing to offer this in Lunenburg, because they already have an arrangement, you know, in a much bigger city, a much bigger call locally, so they could use that resource. But again, there could be other insurance companies that have the same thing, and we would be happy to pursue that if there's any interest from the, you know, from our customers. So
They give you a cost?
Yeah, I was going to say that. Did they give you?
they did give me a cost. It's about for sewer alone, it's about $90 about $90 a year
It's not a lot.
in FEMA.
Do we know what exactly is covered? Do they make you whole? Do they only pay for the pipe? Do they pay for all the construction that takes to get the pipe under the ground? Do we know if they cover clay
Supposedly
pipes?
they cover, you know, from the city main, from where we stop covering, right up to the home. If you do have, because we're going to have more soon, if you have a pump, an ejector pump, a E1 or whatever, they will only go up to that. They will not cover that pump. So it's basically the pipes in the ground. And they do everything. As you say here, you know, they even paid for the DPW inspection of $50. So it sounds like it's set up pretty much so that the homeowner has no cost. But again, if we want to pursue it, they'd be willing to come in and talk to us, or even, you know, if we had some residents that were interested to come in, we could schedule some public meeting to have somebody like this. Or again, I'm not pushing this company, it's just the only one I know about so far.
I guess rather than assume, I would want to know if, obviously, they would need to replace to current code. And so if someone had something that was below that or different from, or substantially different, then would they cover something like that?
Well, it's like anything else, I would assume they look at the house they're gonna insure
Right.
and see if it is up to code at that time. Because you're right, they're not gonna,
But you know what they say about assuming, right?
You know, if I lived over in the Whalum district and had a clay pipe coming out of my house, I'd be paying for that.
yeah.
Well, yeah, and again, that would be a good example, you know,
Yeah.
will you
I had a customer
cover
in
clay
my
pipe?
garage that had a water pipe break,
Yes?
and he had that insurance on there, they covered it,
Oh, okay, in Leominster.
yeah.
Oh, okay, so, and he was happy, or,
Well, he didn't have to go to the bank to pay for it.
okay,
Of course he was happy.
makes me happy. Okay.
You happy? Yeah,
So again, if you know, if that's of interest to people, we would be happy to
Just gotta
pursue it
remember
further.
who it was.
Mr. Chairman, do you happen to know if this is something that people could do on their own if this didn't move further with this, or?
The impression I got from at least, again, this company, they could go reach out to any insurance company, I assume, and see if they could find it. My impression from talking to this insurance company is they like to sort of partner with the town.
Got it.
And Leominster actually sent out a letter, you know, and that might be our partnership. We wouldn't, there are business models that they have where, you know, the sewer commissioner, whoever they partner with in the town, gets some small percentage. But Leominster waived that, as I would guess, knowing you guys, that we would also waive it and let the homeowner keep it. So it would reduce their, you know, their payment by whatever that is. So it'd be more of a facilitating, but again, I didn't get the impression that if somebody, you know, called them up tomorrow from Lunenburg and said, would you cover me, that they would do it. Because they need to get, you know, they need to get agreements with the local contractors. I think they're out of Connecticut or something, this particular company, but this local, they said, we have one in Leominster, so that makes some sense. We probably can cover you.
I guess that being the case, I would like to at least have that as an option for people if they're interested.
Mhm.
So if we can I don't know what the next step is, if we can get them in, or if,
Probably do the legwork to get a hold of the company
Yeah, it sounds like you got to set it
and
up.
to see what it would entail.
We can, I mean, they offered to come in. So if that
I
would be
can't
the pleasure.
imagine you wouldn't have people that would get in on it.
So if that would be the
I would,
pleasure. we
you know, I
can-
certainly wouldn't want to make it to where anyone has to, but if the only way for people to have the option would be for them to go through the sewer commission, then I would certainly want to facilitate that.
Yeah, okay. If the commission would like, I can contact them and I can schedule them in for one of our meetings, perhaps one of our televised meetings.
Yeah, that'd be excellent.
Actually, televised meeting would be good, then the homeowners out there could get it firsthand.
All right.
And it wouldn't be he said, they said.
Great, yeah, no, I'll be happy to do that.
Sounds good.
Make it so, number
All right, I will do that. Because you asked so nice. Okay, sewer commission projects update. Flow metering, Mike, any, I know there were some things went out there. Ron?
I went to the Mass Ave. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see them change it because of the scheduling there, but by talking to them, that they had, because of where the flow meter is, because of an accident that occurred, it's more subjective to the elements right now, and so we're getting about 50% of the use out of the pump is out of the meter because of it, because of placement. So I think that we should further look at possibly, I know we don't want to put it back where it was, but somehow either protect it better where it is. Other than that, everything else is good. It's just a matter of, you know, now it's been rebuilt. There was a cost involved. We got about 50% of the life out of it, and it's right back where it was. So it just makes sense to find a better way to resolve it. That's all.
Sounds good.
So this is, that's really great information, Mike. I'm glad and appreciate you going out there. Because this is the meter that we pay Fitchburg based on what this meter says. So it's very much, very important for us to get this
Be
right.
sure that it's accurate.
So what do you think we need to do next, Mike, to actually make a change?
That's kind of the dilemma, because it was out of the elements. It was on the side, and the history is, you know, the car hit where it was, and, you know, insurance claim was made, and for whatever reason, you know, wasn't involved at the time, but it was decided to put it there on a temporary basis, I guess, and temporary became permanent, and now, you know, fast forward, it's either, you know, if we could leave it where it is and find a better way to protect it, I guess.
Okay.
You know, that's an option, but,
What if they put Jersey?
I guess the concern is if they put it back where it was, just another car will hit it. It's on a bad corner. To me, yeah, like Butch was just saying, like a Jersey burial, I mean, you know, protect it better if it were to go back
Just
there.
in case it would Jersey.
But I'm not
barriers.
sure, you know, obviously we'd have to look at the cost effectiveness of all of it.
What is it, Mike? So it was in a cabinet out that could hit by a
Wasn't a
car.
ca-
Now it's in the
It
hole.
wasn't a cabinet, right, now it's down.
the manhole.
Now it's right down in the hole, next to the metering itself, and it's just, the elements are getting to it, it's, you know.
Okay.
it's-
Mr. Chair, I think really, you know, and Mike gave a good report. Bottom line is that it was protected. It's a crucial element to this business. It wasn't put back right. Make it right, because and that if that means building a doghouse for it or something. But I'd like to know what the insurance company did. Why didn't they put it back? It should have been put back to protect it, because we got to get that. That's our number one pump, and we're paying a lot of money with that. So I recommend strongly that we get that repaired and do it the right way, not half it.
How long ago was this accident?
A year ago, maybe a year and a half.
Yeah.
Right on the Fitchburg.
Has it been
Lumber
completely settled, or
Little more than
or is
that.
there still?
And I think they put it underground because that was, at that time, what they thought was the best alternative. It's just that.
Who's
there was-
they? I'm sorry.
Weston and Sampson was
Okay.
involved, and the commission and the DPW and flow assessment. just the thought that, oh, God, let's get it underground and protect it. And now after years,
Pretty hard to
we're
hit it
seeing
when
the
it's underground.
corrosion and because of the moisture. So we're thinking needs to go up and be done in a cabinet. It was
So we wouldn't be looking to go back to any insurance for any of this? It's something that we're going,
I wouldn't think
it,
so.
it sounds as though it's a closed claim. It's
Yeah.
completely
Well-
completed.
Yeah. Sounds like it was our decision of how
Yeah.
to fix it.
Yeah,
That is
so-
the
They
problem.
accepted it already where it is.
Right.
It's hard to go back to them.
I just didn't know where we were in the flow of
Yeah,
claim.
right, yeah. Can we get somebody else to pay for it? But, so I don't know if I was going to agree with you and suggest that maybe we have Weston Sampson look at it, but now I'm wondering if they're the people that should look at it, or, I mean, because somebody basically needs to make a recommendation of
I don't
how
remember,
to fix this correctly.
I don't
right?
remember at all us saying, let's put it underground, not at
I
all.
don't think it was ever discussed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember Weston Sampson looking at it, to be honest with you. I thought that the insurance company was going to put it back to where it belongs. So this is,
Well, they didn't want to, we didn't want to do it. I can look back and see how that was determined.
Yeah,
It was
I
all
mean-
a part, we did it at the same time as we were doing those temporary meters. So it was part of the main, a whole project.
Maybe Jack thought it was better the way they did it.
Yeah. At the time, it was just, we need to protect it, we can't have it above ground. And now we see what the outcome is of putting it underground. I had asked Flow Meter, when they found out it was not reading properly and swapped it out, I have asked them, we're waiting on their,
Maybe they
on
needed a
a
bigger
price to
shelter
put it
in the
on an
ground.
above-ground cabinet, but
Bigger area.
haven't determined where and how to protect it, but I'm waiting.
I'm sorry, Barb, you said you asked them? I didn't hear what.
I did, when they had advised that it was malfunctioning and they had swapped it out, I had said at that time, well, let us know what it would be to do an above-ground unit. And
So was there a recommendation to immediate?
he just said
was
it's
to
going
put
to
it
keep
above ground?
doing this. It's
Yeah.
just we're throwing
So there was no
away.
alternative to keep it
He
underground?
didn't think it was
Okay.
wise. So,
was the meter reading correctly when you were there?
I didn't get to that point. There was a detail involved, and the detail hadn't shown up yet, and it was kind of conflicting schedules, so. But I just think we should look at all the options. There might be an option of a waterproof cabinet, for all I know. I mean,
That's what I was thinking, Mike,
Right, so it just, where it is not good for it right now,
Right.
that's all.
so maybe we need
We'll wait to hear from you, Mike.
flow assessment and maybe talk to Jack about how do we get this thing out, how to get it out of that hole, right? Where it needs to go, I don't know.
I'm sure they run into it.
should be able to
There
protect
might
it.
even be a cabinet, like I said, that it can
Yeah.
be encased in, that would resolve it, but it's not like a giant unit. I mean, it's, bigger than a toaster oven.
Smaller than, smaller than a
Smaller than a
car.
car?
Okay, moving on. Okay, I think this is probably the last meaty item of the night is the privately funded extension policy
Down the line or up the line.
update.
I don't, Mr. Chairman, I don't have anything further other than, last meeting, there was a draft, and I do think it needs some work. And so I'm looking for feedback on what people, the commission would like added to it, and if Barb,
Okay.
and I know that the last meeting where it was presented, that Barb said that a couple of the calculations need to be corrected, so I'd be really interested in that. The main purpose behind this was to provide something to contractors or the public, whomever, that wants to do a privately funded sewer extension, to make it easy for them and know what it's going to cost and what I need, and have everything in one place and be able to check off, I have everything I need to go move forward.
Right.
And so that's what we're working on as a document to get it to go forward.
I
So-
did glance at that, and it's always tough. It's a great goal to have that document. It is always the risk is that you can't get all of the requirements in there, or else you recreate all the documents. The one place that it looked to me that we might need to beef it up or something, though, is for the privately funded. It's very well documented and very, accurate and complete for betterments. But and privately funded, which is why this whole discussion is dragging on, it's a very complex situation, because there's a lot of different, ways it can be addressed and different implications. So that's my only input, is that it was, when I got to the very end and it said privately funded, it was just sort of this little note. Because one of the things, and I don't know, Troy, you've become more familiar with what we already have documented than I, but I've been thinking more and more lately about the situations where, like the Highfield, for instance, they helped fund putting the system in, so they've already, paid their dues and won't have any privilege fees. I think we've discussed, and we think it's pretty straightforward, that the people on White, the people between them and 2A, that will, thanks to that development, now have access, would be treated the same as a privately funded extension. So, and just to reiterate, if anybody's there, so anyone along that way, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, the expectation will be that if you connect when that line comes down the street, you would be able to connect at a 50% of the prior betterment fee, which today is $11,000, so 50% would be $5,500. But if it's a later connection, it would be at the full betterment fee.
Mr. Chair, I thought our policy now was when the town accepts the line and the connections,
Right.
after that point, the residents have to pay the full betterment.
Yes, yeah, and that's how the line is defined, but they're very close to the same thing. If, once it comes down and it's complete, we very quickly accept it. So it's the same, it's the same net effect. If you connect before we accept it, it's 50% the prior betterment. If you connect after we accept it, it's 100%.
And when you say connect, are you saying help in the cost of the project? this
Nothing to do with
connection?
cost.
Nothing to do with
Nothing to
cost.
do with cost.
So if you take,
So we don't have 50% connection fees.
No.
No. Better, we're talking privilege fees.
privilege fees. When they
Connection.
run the sewer down back of White Street and stuff, it's up to the developer, the same thing they did anywhere else. It's up to the developer to recruit the people, make sure we get the signatures, that everyone has a chance to tie in at that point. Once they're tied in, Jack approves, or the DPW director approves a line, then it's done. Anybody else who ties in after that will pay the full betterment.
But in order to get the reduced, usually they've assisted in the cost of putting in the line.
That's up to the developer.
yeah, that's up to the-
That's up to the developer.
Right.
I mean, if I was building a project and my gift was to help the local residents out to make and that's why it's done, it's give and take. So I would urge the residents on White Street, when that happens, to tie in. And that's, again, between the developer and the user, not us.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
We're talking about from Highfield to 2A and White. In my mind, that sounds like a pretty good-sized distance. Do we have a policy in place that where we get to 2/3, where we don't get to 2/3? How many people could be served before we say, yeah, you can?
Yeah, good point. And the reason I'm throwing this out is because
Yeah.
I can't remember if these things are touched in our policy, but they're things that should be. Yeah, like this discussion we just had about at the time, before acceptance versus after. For private extensions, we don't require 2/3.
No, I know, but I just
I'm
wondered.
sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Well, I was wondering if, is it because they either didn't go through the process, or is it because, it sounded like to me that when I'm trying to explain this how I mean it.
I think
If you have a good-sized distance between A and B, and there are a lot of different people there, the only time that it would be a private sewer extension, in my mind, is that you can't get the 2/3, or it's just more economic to do a private. But if there's no policy and they can do it as far as they want, then do we have a policy about that? Do we say if you're going to pass by 100 or 150
Well, I see if I'm
houses?
I've been on this for 5 years.
Yeah,
Let me
take a
see
shot
if
at it, Dave.
Yeah, go.
I've been on this commission for 5 years. I'll
Yeah.
try to explain it. You got a developer going up
Yeah.
the project. His agreement is he's going to bring the sewer, which we told him we wanted gravity fed. He's going to bring it down to White Street. It doesn't matter if it's 10 feet long or 50 miles long. That's what he's going to do. In doing that, he's going to let those residents know, because I'm building this project up here, I got to run sewer, I got to connect here. You have an opportunity to tie in. Right? So now they come in and they tie in. We accept the town, we accept it, it's done. Now we have, say, 20 new customers. In the meantime, if someone comes in, they're not going to be assessed a betterment, but they'll be assessed a privilege fee. And the privilege fee will be the same amount as the betterment. Mr. Ebersol, did I get that right? Because you pounded it into me like 500 times. So the bottom line is we still get our monies, only it's not betterments, it's privilege.
I guess my question is if there's something in between the 50 feet and 50 miles, if we have a policy that says, when you start getting up to 20 miles or 25 miles, that we need to start looking at whether this is a private sewer extension or we need to look at, do you understand my?
Yeah,
That's come up before. Like in Leominster or Fitchburg, if they run sewer down the street, you pay for that whether you hook or not. We don't do that here.
So I guess I would try to search for what you're really looking for by, ask you, do you think there's a policy required that?
I don't think there is. I'm wondering.
He's wondering if there should be one.
I'm wondering.
But I guess, what
Right.
would create the need, if there's some inequity or something, I could see a need for a policy.
In other words, is there a limit to how far you can go with a private sewer extension,
Yeah,
I guess?
and and that's why I wonder if there's some possible problem you foresee that we need to deal with. I'm not seeing any potential problem with a very long private, clearly we have to approve it. To me, the significant difference between a private and a betterment is that the private extension does not force anyone to pay anything.
Right.
Other than the person who's paying for the extension. So it can run by your house and you're not forcing anyone. That's why there's no 2/3 requirement. So I'm looking for what other potential downside might there be to a very long.
I think I think I understand what you're trying to say as far as how long can it be before it becomes a betterment or something at that point.
Or at least that we start to inquire as to whether this should be.
But any developer that comes into town would always take the shortest point from point A to point B because you're paying by the foot. So in this case, the shortest distance would be down Elm, is it Elm?
Got me now.
I forgot the name of
Maple
this.
Parkway.
Maple Parkway
yeah.
to White Street, that's the closest connection. So,
I guess in reviewing policy, though, I would prefer not to look at specific situations and look at the potential for
Overall.
yeah.
Right. And where could somebody get hurt, or where do we need to protect
Right.
people?
And I guess when
Spaghetti.
the first, and I really haven't explored this very much. It just came to me while I was sitting here. So,
It's young.
it just came to me.
but I guess if the private sewer extension is sitting in the ground for 20 years or whatever, and now when someone wants to connect to it, it's not going to be feasible unless the whole pipe's replaced. Could that be potentially a problem?
Could happen.
I guess an example of that would be, why we have these covenants, that for some reason we allow, because the first rule is that whatever you put in has to be consistent with the CWMP and supporting, not only what it runs by, but where it's supposed to go beyond your use, right? So that's the guideline. If it meets that, then it's just like a betterment.
But we have allowed, yeah.
We have allowed, like on Lancaster, but in that case, we protected for it in that we had people sign covenants understanding that if we have to put the right system in the future, you're going to have to participate in the betterment and pay again. So that was, that fear is kind of what drove that also. Maybe somebody won't be able to connect to it, and you'll have to put a whole new system in. Well, then you're going to have to repay the betterment.
Okay.
But keep thinking about it, because maybe there's something there.
Now you get more, now you're confused more.
Okay. Is there any inputs tonight for Troy, or do you want to think about what he's provided? And I would suggest we give him some written feedback on what he sent before the next meeting, so.
The only thing, I mean, we brought this up, I thought this was excellent in itself. The only thing I would probably do is do a package with the license, the permit applications and stuff, say, here you go, here's the applications, you're all done. But I thought this was good. I thought this was already done. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Didn't we talk about this last?
Well, no, because I think we need to do something about private, and that was told as private discussion. It's
Check off private.
Yeah, but it doesn't have, the whole private's got one little line on the bottom. Anyway, Troy understands.
Okay.
And have a lot more space.
Where's the one little line for the private? The privilege fee? It's everything's here. Okay. Well, anyways, this is good.
Okay. Business systems and process, the one area on that I just report on, there's not that much to report, but billing is one of the big time consumers that I've been working, trying to learn from Barb. I did approach, at one point I think I mentioned it to everyone, that I was going to approach the water district, who gives us the data we bill, and does all of the billing to the same people, see if they could, or we're interested in, under contract, doing some billing for us, taking some of this load off us. They're not interested in that, and that's okay. They were very nice about it. I had a nice talk with Dave Rogers and I forgot her name.
Margaret.
Margaret, I thought it was Margaret, who were very supportive. But what the most important thing was, I learned that they actually outsource their billing. So that's one of the reasons they weren't anxious to help. But they gave me the contact information of the people that do their billing for them, and provide the software to do that. So Barb and I were going to follow up with them and just have them come in and review what we do, and could they, since it's the same database they already have from the water district, they're at least used to it. There's a jump up on it. So we will have them in and talk to them and see if there's any, possibility for helping us out here, and we'll report back on that.
Mr. Chair, I thought we looked into that a few years ago, and the only reason why we couldn't, because the town had a system that we're on. Bob, am I bringing back a memory that we couldn't change that, even though it's obsolete, where the water department is totally different.
Water department doesn't work with Munis,
Right. We do, though.
Right.
and we do.
And can we change, because we
And
talked
yeah, we
about
can.
changing
It was
it.
just that the cost was kind of prohibitive.
So like QuickBooks.
But
we
if
get to
this,
QuickBooks?
yeah, but if this company possibly already works with Munis, we may, there might be some things. we-
I
So we might
just-
be able to get both worlds. and at the
Mr.
back
Chairman,
end-
is there a possibility of combining the two bills, or is that something that's not desirable, or would that save any money if they were combined into one bill?
they weren't
You
interested.
don't
We
wanna
could
do it.
certainly ask that. The water district, to their credit, are a separate entity from the town.
Yes.
So it can
yeah.
get confusing
Yeah.
if you start combining things. We can certainly, ask that question, but I suspect it wouldn't save a whole heck of a lot, but,
But, since you're on the subject, Troy, another question is, our bills generated by the Lunenburg district, sewer district, where do those bills go to when people mail them in? They still go to Fitchburg, or did we change that address,
the payments, you mean?
payments?
Fitchburg.
To sewer, for the first 30 days, it goes to Fitchburg,
It still goes to
to a
Fitchburg?
lockbox, yep. That's just the collector's process.
I've had people come to me saying, why is their bills going to Fitchburg? And
It's the bank.
It still does. I get a bill every
Had the
quarter.
same question, right.
Honestly, we send it to
Supposedly
Westford,
speeds up the
because it's a
process.
real-
Okay, so we'll report on any progress there. So now we're getting down to the end, thank God. Permits to connect,
Just that one.
Just 142 Oak?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, is there another one? Did the Overshawns building connect?
Yep, they did. They had taken out they'd gotten their permit like 2 years ago. It was reviewed and renewed, and they were assessed the the I&I fee, an additional connection fee because of additional usage, but
But the whole building
already-
now is
yeah.
sewered, so that's 4 new customers there?
3. Well,
I think someone's moving into the empty
right,
space.
but I think is it 1 meter? I can't remember. It may be 3, but I think it may be 1 meter. I need to check with the water department then.
But that's more, good. No, I saw him digging out there last week, so I was wondering, and what about the house behind?
No, but I want to ask and make sure, because as far as I, the permit was only with Obashan.
Looks
so I
like
want
the
to make.
digging,
I know,
looks
I
like the
saw that
digging went all the
tonight.
way up, so I would,
But there was no permit to that, so I have a mental note to talk to
Mr.
Jack.
Chair, we request our DPW director go up there and take a look at that.
He did, he went multiple
Mm-hmm.
times, I just need to check with him.
Did they tie in?
I didn't ask that question, but he knows that the conversation was all within, just with Obashan. It was all, the plans were all dealing with coming around the back of the building, so I don't think it was. It may have been just the equipment going up and down, I don't know.
Well,
But I will.
this isn't on the agenda, so we don't,
True, it's not a permit, it's an old permit to connect, but it's a new connection. Thank you, Troy.
Okay. Minutes,
I did not.
did not. Oh, see.
I will, I'm hoping
did we,
next.
did we pass over 42 Oak? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yes, that was the
connect.
one permit
That
to
was the
connect
permit.
we
One. Is it,
received.
so it's just a notification to us that, okay.
Yeah. And that's how 65 Mass Ave came up.
Since we're
Was-
talking about
Yeah, yeah, I
connection.
know.
houses,
That was an old permit.
Yeah, I understand, but.
Okay.
Okay. Pump station reports. Anybody review or have any questions, comment on the pump station reports?
I did.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Ah, all right.
Maybe it's the same. I noticed, the usual, the probe, but there was one, I didn't print it out, so I might not be wording it right, but they said they were checking a wet well or a,
The annual wet well cleaning that hasn't been done for 2 years because of the quarry leaving
okay, what is the wet well?
was done, I don't know. It's just, it's a
It's
process
a-
of
it's-
taking out the,
It's the tank, it's the holding tank that the pump's
It's
in.
the holding, okay, because I was gonna say, I went to the pump station
Right.
and I just don't remember
Right,
a wet well.
Yeah, so I think it's, because you can see how they
It's a-
get, they
it's-
get,
It's where it's, so it's,
I won't say.
it's where the sewer's coming in.
You feel left out?
Out, is
Right.
what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
so they have to
Yeah, I
do
felt
good
like maybe
cleaning
left
out of it every
something
now
off
and
the
then.
toy, you know, it was like-
no. And it's supposed to be done annually, but it hadn't been, so,
Okay. No, I noticed there was quite a few stations that they
Yeah.
checked.
Yeah, all but two.
Yeah.
So I had what did we pay for? I remember I saw that recently. What was it? I thought we had a pretty good chunk of money for,
it's like 4,000
like
for all of them, I think.
4,000 for all of them. Because what caught my eye was, all but two of them were done.
Yeah.
They're all done on the same day.
No, that's why I was just curious, like, I don't know what they're doing.
Well, he took you on the
It's
tour.
kind of jetting the lines. They take out equipment and just jet.
Yeah, it can't be much to it. They did them all one day.
Right. And I think
You don't
that's,
want to check next
When they
year.
took you on the tour, you went down Happy Slide around the corner. He didn't show you the wet well? That's popular.
So are you saying that something that takes
Like it's a small
a matter
little-
of minutes is costing us several $1,000s? Is that the question, or?
It was sort of the observation.
but it takes external equipment. It's not
It's in the
alloy,
west
it's
end.
not
Yeah,
small.
no, it's another company
Right.
that we pay, right? But
And then if it's an annual, then why weren't they all done? I guess is the next logical question. I had several questions, actually, Mr. Chairman, if I
Yes.
might. I still have problems with the comments coming from SWSS. We talked about that with them, I think, at last review. They're sort of vague when you just say, check dialer, check dialer and probe. I don't really know why they check one time, one the other time, and not both, and not on all. And then again on 31015, on the 314 reports, it looks like there was a problem on there were tank levels that were at 0 on several of them, on several of the stations. Francis Street, Mass Ave 1,
right.
Meadowwoods, all the way through. There were, on 31015, there were 0 tank level, which seemed to be a problem. And then on Leominster Road, 31015, there was a tank level 8.0, which was double or more than double the rest of the reporting period. And I found that concerning or questionable, or asked the question at least why. And then there were comments that say, like, we remove ice on only one, but then on none of the others And I just, and then there were clean air dryers. And then some of the probes were only checked, there was one on Meadowwoods that was only checked once on 3/20/15, and I didn't know, on all the other stations, they were all checked more than just the one time. Then there were some call-outs. Mass Ave 2 in the 321 reports, 314, call out 10 a.m., both pumps fail, clean probe, clear alarms. And to me, that is a little insufficient. I don't know why they both failed. I don't know, just, is it all resolved because they cleaned the probes and then it was cleared? And then on Mass Ave 1, 315, they were called out at 5 a.m. High level, both pumps, run lines 3 prime, ran both pumps, cleared alarms. And that's it. So, and I know the call-outs are an issue, if, can be an issue moving forward. There was also a report on there, the flow meter inspection on 319, replace rental POD with towns, repair POD, cable and sensor were shorted out, replaced. That doesn't really tell me a lot of information. It's concerning to me that I don't know what, are we supposed to take action on that? Is it a concern? Do we need to replace the town's rental, or, maybe and maybe the
Yeah, no,
commission
it's-
knows, but.
Oh, well, that was Mike's, that was
Right.
the flow assessment.
Okay.
On that one, right, yeah.
And most of the comments were all similar. There was all just basically check that or check probe. That was my biggest concern. Is it's just not enough information to me. So
Well, it's good to capture those, and I'm sure Barb captured a lot of them. So we can pass them on to Small Water, because they will be at our next meeting. And it'll be good to have them.
They haven't been around for a couple of meetings.
Well, this would be for their quarterly discussion with us.
Mike, did you have any comments, sir?
What's that?
Did you have any comments on those pump station reports?
Well, no, that was the one about the wet well and.
They wouldn't let them see it.
Mr. Chair, I was wondering,
Yes.
does the DPW director look at these reports too and express any concerns?
He receives them. I don't.
But, I mean, if he reviews them and...
Yeah.
Because if he's communicating with Small Water, maybe that would solve some of the problems that we're having, because I'm hoping that our DPW director is looking at these reports and questioning the same questions you just asked, Troy. So maybe it'd be good to get some kind of explanation from the DPW director, because he still is supposed to be
Maybe give
reading these
Jack a
reports as
call,
well,
ask him.
isn't he?
one other comment was on the Mass Ave 1.
Hope so.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
Oh, no, the other was on Mass Ave 1, 31015. They made a note that there were pieces of green pipe, and there was no other additional comment. I guess there was an issue there, and they had to clear
What was that again, Troy? Pieces of green pipe?
pieces of green pipe.
I would want to know what that's about.
Green pipe.
Yeah, that was Mass Ave 1 and 31015 on the 314 report. Said 31015 tank level 0.5, which was highly irregular from the rest of the reporting period. Pieces of green pipe comments were similar to all those of the other.
They find green
Sounds
pipe
like
in
something
the-
broke up and got caught in there.
They find green pipe in the pump?
sounds it in the well.
But
Troy said you
again,
can't really tell what it
I'm
means.
concerned about that because I don't know really what that means. Does it mean that we need to take some
Well,
sort of
maybe
action?
we gotta tell them we want more detail in their report.
Well, and as I expressed from the outset, I thought that we had expressed that we wanted more detail in our reports. And I might be wrong, but when
no,
we last
it's-
met with them, I thought we
Well, they
wanted
just
more.
didn't listen.
It's certainly been expressed, and, it's, maybe they think saying pieces of green pipe instead of stuff is more detail, I don't know.
Yeah, but green pipe is,
You have a point.
green pipe's usually the channel 40 that they use.
But we're paying them,
pipe.
so they should give us the report we want.
Which pump station was that, Troy? The green
Mass
pipe?
one.
Bass Ave, he said.
Let's have one, yeah.
So it was during the wet well cleaning where they...
Well, and then I'm sorry, I have one more. Dana Street, 31315, generator running. I don't know what that means, or GEN, I'm assuming it's generator. GEN running.
I think.
It doesn't tell me
Good question.
really
You want it
anything.
to
Was it
run.
running when he showed up, or when he tried to make it run? Did it run?
It would be a guess.
Right. Fair questions.
At least that maintenance for the generators worked.
Don't bet on that.
Okay, good. We'll just pass that on. And
They will encourage a tour,
Wanna go
I'm
home,
sure.
is it?
Try again in the nice weather.
Yeah, just told him.
I know, but Troy
Oh,
didn't.
Troy couldn't make it. Okay, moving along. Business manager report. Invoices, Pittsburgh, Copeland, and Page.
I have some invoices. None of them are earth-shattering. The other thing was I sent at a very late hour a draft of the annual report, which I can send out. Which I will hand out, but I know it's late and it's a lot of information, so it's a first stab.
It was pretty good, though. I glanced at it today.
Did you? I didn't have a chance.
Is it just one page?
Yeah, two-sided. The only other change I made was when I looked back at it and saw new connections for 2013, it's not right. So that one line about new connections is changed from what I sent you than what I'm handing out. This one is during FY14, which is what the annual report's supposed to cover, so.
Is this last year's annual report? Or this is 2 years ago?
Fiscal year 14 is what they request.
So is there any chance we can, or who would I talk to if there's any chance of getting out of that? Because that to me is crazy. We're reporting on stuff that's a year old.
I think
It's-
they do, because the year hasn't closed out.
I was
Yeah,
wondering
but
what
the
this was.
activities
This
are-
was, yeah, these are all,
Activities are done, you know, it's so old, I have no interest in reading it because it's so old. you know. So,
Carrie?
Gary? All right.
Karen.
Question. There's your selectman right there.
I don't know if it's up to the selectmen, but you have a choice here.
Not those
Is this
two.
all effective
I won't put him on the
3/31?
spot. I'll ask Carrie tomorrow.
All what?
Effective 3/31?
I don't see where it says we're getting a
Well, it
raise.
says 3/31/215 at the top.
Yes.
That's what I
That's
printed
today's
out.
date.
So you
That's
still
just
have
what-
Jay on here.
Right, we're just talking about that. You can
Right.
look at it. This is
It
from 2
covers
years
fiscal
ago.
year 14, so it covers not only when Jay was on, but when you come on. So it is confusing. There's not
So
a
it's
great time
effective
of year.
fiscal year 14?
Right.
You're over here.
So the-
Right.
so the-
7/1/13 through
Got it.
6/30/14.
So the question I have for whoever can answer it, and maybe I'll call Carrie unless there's anyone in the audience that wants to answer it, is, Barb goes a lot of work of, going back and pulling things that happened
2 years ago.
2 years ago, essentially, and never get up to anything that's current. I would much rather, I would think that the people who get the report and read it would rather know what happened in the last 12 months versus what happened
2 years ago.
9 months and back a year from 9 months ago. So,
I don't see anything in there for a raise either.
It's right here. Starting next year, we're not going to be here.
so we can go with this for this year because it's too late. Next year, I think we're going to get permission or ask for forgiveness for having the report actually be current.
Barbara, you still want input on this?
Sure. Well, unless you want to approve it. I had only gotten an initial request that they need to be in, and I didn't give you time enough, so I don't know if we want to wait till
I
the
think-
14th, meeting on the 14th.
I think Troy and Mike just got it too. I think we should wait and just, if you want to.
Yeah, we should wait unless somebody starts really screaming.
Right, I haven't been getting
Well, then,
push.
I don't know when it goes to press. That's the big driver, when the stupid thing goes to press, so. But we'll find out. Let's just wait till the next meeting, and if something happens in between, just let us know, and we'll have to
Okay.
pull a trigger.
Okay. And I just have invoices. Do you want to do that at the end? And that was it, and then I'm going to be on vacation for the next.
You're on vacation. We need to publicize that. You're on vacation from the 11th to the 18th. So get all your requests in before then. Okay.
And then the upcoming activities?
Yeah, I think we talked about the pre-bid tomorrow. Our next regular meeting is the 14th at the DPW, and our system operator, Small Water, will be there for the quarterly review. And then on the 15th is the bid opening. So before we go into executive session, are there any comments from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I just want to say it's been a pleasure. Hopefully we'll be here next month, but if anyone's out there interested in joining the Sewer Commission, I've had a great time. And I'm sure we'll be here next month. But please come forward and talk to the chair or any one of us, and it's a great committee to work on.
Thank you, Dave. That means a
You
lot.
could be sitting in that seat.
You could be sitting in this seat because Mike won't take it.
Still time for a write-in.
Because Mike doesn't want, you could do a write-in or, but you know what, any committee, there's a lot of openings in town right now, and I hope people come out and help the community. It's been fun. But this commission especially, it's from when we first started with Butch and Jay, you know, I've had a good time, and we've got a lot done, a lot accomplished, and it's great working with you guys and, as well, but no goodbyes yet. We're here for one more month, so. But if anyone's out there want to join, please, come on forward.
Yeah, we don't have to come back for that goodbye.
Yeah, we don't have to come back. I got to come back and get my name.
No, you got to come back. As I'm going to save my speeches for then, for next
Nameplate change,
meeting.
yeah.
But I do support what Dave's saying about please consider coming to join us. It's a great commission. We've got a great mission, a great charter. We get to do things. We actually get to roll our sleeves up and make things happen and see results. So we get the rewards of that as well. So
But you know, Mr. Chair, it's been fun, not only with working with all you guys, but knowing that we did something good for the residents of town.
Exactly right.
And I think it's been great, and you know, I don't know what to say except for thank you for the residents.
okay, then I would like a motion if someone.
Mr. Chair, I put a motion.
Wait, I got to read the formal, because it's executive session, we got to be very careful here. I would like a motion to go into executive session with the commission under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Paragraph 3, to discuss litigation strategy regarding litigation known as Hollis Hills LLC versus Lunenburg ZBA, Superior Court Civil Action 2013-1509, and based on the declaration that a discussion in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the town in the litigation, and not to return to open session at the conclusion
moved.
of the executive session.
Stop reading.
Second? Thank you. We'll take a pole vault, pole vault.
You can pull
Yeah,
vote.
Pole
yeah,
vault.
yeah.
You know,
How do you think you're gonna go?
you go through a heart attack, you're feeling good, now you want to pole vote across
Pole vault,
the...
That's
Like I
it.
said, ladies and
I'm feeling
gentlemen,
good.
it's a great committee, we're
Yeah,
going to pole
feeling
vote for
good.
you.
You might even have a chairman spot.
There you go. Ooh. No, that's not good. Okay. Troy? Aye. Mike?
Aye.
Butch?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
And I.
Happy Easter, everybody.
Not to return tonight.